The scene opens at the palace, where a beautiful couple comes out together. People around them begin to murmur as they notice their appearance, saying that they should look over there, because they are finally coming out. The girl is the saintess, and her name is Genevieve. Someone looks at her and wonders if that is truly her, the saintess everyone has been talking about. They mention that they have heard she personally came to purify the poison of the demonic beasts this time. Beside her stands the Duke of Blancard, Shane Blancard, known as the Empire's Sword. Two girls stand nearby, talking about them. One of them says that it really is as people say, that his beauty is heaven-sent, and that it feels as if his very presence is glowing. She adds that the only one who could stand beside a duke like that must be the saintess. The other agrees and says that the two of them really are a perfect match. She explains that the saintess appears once every 100 years, and that he is her guardian. She also mentions that she has heard they are getting married soon, calling it fate itself. The other girl reacts in surprise and asks if he did not originally have a fiancé. The first girl explains that he did, but she died in an accident 5 years ago. She adds that although it feels wrong to say such a thing about the dead, for the sake of the Empire it worked out well. Hearing all this, the saintess thinks that she is glad he seems to be doing well. She recalls that Shane Blancard was the man who had been her fiancé 5 years ago. She reflects that she had no choice but to leave him for a reason she could never tell him. She believes that he would have forgotten her soon enough anyway, since theirs had only been a formal engagement. Above all, after she left, her former fiancé and the saintess, the female lead of this world, would eventually reach their happy ending. She considers herself merely the villainess meant to stand against them. The girls continue talking, saying that the saintess looks perfectly suited to be the future duchess and wishing for the two of them to be happy forever. The saintess thinks that this is enough. She tells herself that she has decided to find her own way to survive and that there is no turning back anymore. She sincerely hopes that he will stay well from now on. In her heart, she calls out to Shane and reflects that she had believed she had changed this world's ending. However, at that very banquet hosted by the Duke, Shane suddenly calls out to her, addressing her as Duke and looking visibly surprised. The narration begins, explaining that realizing how foolish that thought had been does not take long at all. Her name is Edeline Bertrand, the cherished only daughter of the Marquis Bertrand family and a reincarnator. Because of the faint memories of her past life, she initially feels like an outsider in this world and within her own family. However, after seeing how her parents genuinely worry about and love her, along with her dependable older brothers whom she accepts as her real family, she decides to bury her emotions and live as a carefree child surrounded by everyone's attention. A flashback appears of her running in the garden while maids call after her, telling Lady Edeline not to run like that because she will get hurt. Despite this, the strange anxiety that comes with being reincarnated still prevents her from fully blending into this world. Then one day, another memory surfaces from when she is very young. Her mother introduces someone to her, telling Edeline to greet him and explaining that he is her fiancé, the young Duke Blancard. A young boy stands before her, looking at her curiously and wondering who that child is. He greets her politely and expresses his hope that they will get along well. Looking at him, she realizes that he is her fiancé and responds that she also looks forward to it. In her thoughts, she is amazed, thinking that he really looks like a prince from a storybook. Thus, that day becomes the first time she meets Shane. At first, as a reincarnator, she worries about whether she can properly maintain an engagement with the child. Yet, as they hold hands and she suggests that they go together, she finds that her worries are unnecessary. Perhaps it is thanks to Shane's maturity, or perhaps because she has already adapted to being a child, but they always spend time together happily. Because of this, she is finally able to feel connected to this world. One day in the garden, she tells Shane that someday she truly wants to travel all around the Empire. However, she admits that her family is always worried about her, so she reveals that she has secretly been saving up funds for that dream. As she looks at him, she notices that familiar expression again. Sometimes, Shane wears a look as if everything is meaningless. As a reincarnator, She recognizes that Shane has helped her fully adapt to this world, so she wants to make him happy as well. She wonders if there is something about him that she does not know. Later, on the day Shane's mother passes away and her funeral is held, people whisper among themselves, saying that the child is not very childlike. They mention that the Duchess did not keep the young Duke close when she was alive and speculate that perhaps she could not grow attached to him because he was not cute. At that moment, Edeline finally understands the meaning behind the expression Shane sometimes makes. He has always been silently enduring words like these. Even if he is mature, he is still just a child. As Shane stands before his mother's funeral, she approaches him and hugs him. He calls out her name in confusion. She begins to cry and tells him that he is still a child, so he should cry freely. He reacts with surprise and questions what she is suddenly saying. She insists that even at a time like this, he does not need to pretend to be an adult and that he can cry. Shane remains silent for a moment before telling her to calm down and insisting that he is really fine, even forcing a smile. She calls him a fool and questions why he is the one comforting her. He responds with confusion, but she hugs him again and tells him that she will stay with him. She explains that people sometimes lie to themselves, claiming they are fine in the face of great sorrow, but that does not mean they truly are. She asks him to stay with her and not try to be alone. In response, he hugs her back and thanks her, saying that it is all right. After that, they begin to rely on each other, and she believes that only truly happy days remain ahead until that incident occurs. Around the age of 9, she happens to read a line in a newspaper, and from that moment, her life changes completely. The article states that a saintess appears once every 100 years, and that nearly a century has already passed since the previous one appeared. Since a new one has yet to emerge, the anxious people of the Empire have already begun to call the future saintess the savior of the Empire. Reading this, she suddenly realizes something. She questions whether this is about the saintess of the 100-year cycle, the savior of the Empire. The story feels familiar, and she concludes that it is definitely the novel she read in her past life. This leads her to wonder if that means she has transmigrated into a novel. She realizes that the saintess she once thought was fictional is actually real. She recalls that the novel was an ordinary romance story about a saintess who purifies the poison of demonic beasts threatening humanity and a duke who serves as her guardian. The problem lies with the young Duke Shane Blancard, who later becomes a candidate to assist the saintess. He is the male lead of the novel, and also her fiancé. In the story, she, as the male lead's fiancé, grows jealous of the relationship between the male and female leads and commits all sorts of evil deeds, eventually dying as the world's villainess. There is also another shocking fact: the awakening of the saintess. In this world, demonic beasts exist, and only the saintess, the female lead, can purify their poison and save humanity. However, the trigger for her awakening is the death of the villainess, Edeline herself. After awakening, the saintess uses her power to prevent the world's destruction and reach a happy ending. In other words, the story is completed through the death of the villainess, through her death. At that moment, Shane calls out to her, asking what she is thinking about so suddenly. He suggests that they go for a walk after lunch, saying that he wants to show her the flowers blooming in the garden. He calls her name again. Night falls, and someone calls out to her from outside, revealing that it is Shane and asking to talk for a moment. He questions whether he has done something wrong and admits that he does not understand why she is suddenly asking for an annulment. Inside, she hides herself under a blanket, crying silently as she thinks that she is sorry and that she had no other choice. He knocks on the door again. She tells him that she is sorry but asks him to leave. Meanwhile, he thinks that she should not be kind to him anymore. After remembering the moment she had been reincarnated, she recalls how she asked Shane for an annulment. It had been an attempt to twist the original plot, even if only slightly. She believes that if she lets Shane go, he will meet the female lead much sooner, and in that process, they might find another way for the saintess to awaken. She knows that the engagement would not actually be broken due to the circumstances of the adults, but she still has to distance herself from Shane one way or another. She apologizes in her heart for hurting him, thinking that he'll be able to forget someone like her soon enough. After all, he is the protagonist designed for a happy ending. She resolves that after the saintess appears, she will do her best to help her awaken, endure everything, and avoid her own death. However, she realizes that this novel is far crueler than she had imagined. After some time, while she is sleeping in her bed, she senses footsteps. Shane enters the room, holding something in his hand as if intending to kill her. In fear, she suddenly shouts and wakes up, realizing it was just a dream. She wonders how many days it has been since these nightmares began. Ever since she declared the annulment, she has been plagued by them. In one dream, she successfully breaks the engagement, only to be poisoned. In another, she tries becoming a follower of the heroine but is still assassinated. In yet another, she flees to a monastery but dies in an accident. In the dream she had most recently, her eldest brother goes on a business trip to the Tayat kingdom, brings back a servant, and she is murdered by that servant. All of these nightmares share one thing in common: they always end with her death. She questions the strangeness of it, noting that her brother is still a minor, so such a business trip makes no sense. She dismisses them as strange dreams. Later, as she sits at the dining table, her mother notices her pale appearance and asks if she is all right. Edeline forces a smile and replies that she simply did not sleep well. Her mother assumes that she must have lost sleep because she is sad about her second brother going on a long journey. Edeline is startled and asks where her brother is going. Her mother replies that he is going to the Tayat kingdom to start a business. Hearing this, Edeline realizes that it is the same place from her dream, the place where her brother brought back the servant who killed her. She begins to suspect that those were not merely nightmares but prophetic dreams. As if to confirm her suspicions, her dreams begin to turn into reality. When she dreams of her eldest brother returning to the territory, he leaves for the territory the next day. When she dreams of her mother falling ill, her mother truly becomes sick. It feels as though someone is prophesying her death and mocking her. Unlike other stories where a reincarnated protagonist carves out their own fate, this world seems to whisper to her that if she does not die, everything will fall into ruin. Realizing this, she questions whether fate truly wants her dead that badly. Driven into a corner, she feels a surge of defiance. If she cannot avoid death anyway, then she decides she will fake her death and deceive fate itself. From that moment, she begins preparing meticulously. Based on the original story, she gathers loyal and capable subordinates and carefully calculates the timing and method to stage her death. Since the heroine awakens through the guilt of failing to prevent her death, the plan must be executed on the same day Genevieve is attacked, just like in the original story. While preparing, she continues to distance herself from Shane. She tells him that even though she cannot break the engagement because of the adults, she still has no intention of marrying him. Time passes, and after a few years, the saintess finally appears. With everything ready, the day of the plan arrives. It is night, and heavy rain pours down. Someone calls out to the young duke. Edeline lies there, bleeding. A voice explains that Lady Edeline was injured while trying to protect the saintess. Genevieve kneels beside her, calling out desperately and begging her to open her eyes. Shane rushes over and holds her, urgently ordering someone to bring a healer at once. The command is acknowledged immediately. Edeline feels intense pain, far more than she had expected, as if her entire body is being torn apart. Shane pleads with her not to close her eyes and begs her to look at him. With great effort, she responds, calling his name and confirming that he is there. He reassures her that he is right beside her. Before losing consciousness, she knows she must say what remains unsaid. She reaches up and touches his face, apologizing for everything. She tells him that for saving him and everyone else, she will surely pay the price for hurting him. He remains silent, only looking at her. She then asks him to forget about her and live happily, making him promise. She bids him goodbye. As blood continues to flow and her body weakens, she looks utterly helpless. Someone calls out her name again and again. Guilt washes over her as she thinks of Shane and her family, but she believes she has no other choice, as this is the only way to save everything. In the end, she successfully fakes her death and disappears. After her disappearance, Shane is seen throwing things around his room in anguish. In his mind, he hears her voice reminding him that even if something bad happens, he should not be sad because she will make sure he is happy and that he had definitely promised her. Overwhelmed, he questions why she abandoned him and calls out her name. The scene opens with the narration moving forward 5 years. Edeline reflects that at last, she is finally able to see the article, and with it, she realizes that her long wait is finally over. The newspaper announces what it calls the wedding of the century, describing the blessed bride's beautiful smile. Everything unfolds just like in the original story, as the two of them get married. It speaks of the saintess, once of common birth, whose turbulent life has now turned around. It also mentions that her awakening seems to have gone safely. There is even speculation about whether love is the reason behind her growing divine power. Edeline concludes that the plan has been a complete success. She recalls how she prepared a drug that would make it appear as though she had died without raising suspicion, and how she mapped out an escape route. After entering the coffin, she took advantage of the loopholes in noble funerals. She acknowledges that none of this would have been possible without Lloyd, who has been with her since childhood, and Lucian, the leader of the underworld. Yet, even as she reflects on her success, a thought lingers. She wonders whether it is strange that Blancard has remained quiet. She questions if it is because her existence has already been forgotten. Without meaning to, she finds herself thinking about him again. In her memory, he looks the same as he did back then. Nearby, someone comments that they had always known the two of them would suit each other well, and expresses happiness for Shane. Edeline decides that it is enough reminiscing. She tells herself that all that remains now is for the final mastermind to be caught. If there is still some time left, she considers that it would not hurt to gather more funds for the life ahead. While sitting and reading the newspaper, a boy approaches her and calls out to her. She looks at him and asks what is wrong, noting that he is running in a way that is unlike him. The boy, Lloyd, her loyal servant, tells her that they have just received news from their informant in the capital. He delivers the shocking news that her mother has passed away. Edeline immediately denies it, insisting that it must be a lie. She questions why her mother would die and breaks down into tears. She realizes that this is not what she had expected when she left home. Calling Lloyd's name, she gathers herself. When he responds, she tells him that they must return to her hometown because she wants to pay her respects to her mother. They begin their journey. As they sit in the carriage, Lloyd informs her that if they leave now, they will likely have to wait a long time until the funeral. She responds that since no one has discovered yet that she is alive, it is better to go now. He agrees and tells her that he will wait nearby, asking her to go and say her goodbyes comfortably. She thanks him. After some time, they arrive at their destination. Edeline thinks that fortunately, they have arrived before the funeral begins. She decides to quickly greet her mother and leave. As she moves toward the funeral, someone suddenly grabs her arm and declares that they have finally found her. When she turns back, she sees that it is Shane holding her. She is stunned and calls out his name in disbelief. He calmly remarks that it has been a while. Looking at him, she cannot comprehend the situation and wonders how it is possible for him to be there. She becomes aware of something familiar. His presence, his scent, and confusion overwhelms her. He then states that if he had known she would fall for something like a fake obituary, he would have issued one much sooner. Her thoughts begin to blur as she questions her own consciousness. As he holds her, he tells her to sleep well, calling her his beautiful fiancé and saying that when she wakes, they will be together. At that moment, she hears someone calling her name. She begins to question what is happening, and suddenly, Shane's voice reaches her again, asking what she is thinking about so deeply. Disoriented, she recalls that she was clearly at her mother's funeral. She calls his name again, but then realizes something else. This is a memory from childhood. In that memory, she questions why every living thing must die, and wonders if they cannot stay together forever. She remembers that the young Shane had always been gentle and kind. In response to her question, he had held her hand and assured her that he would never die and would stay by her side forever. But now, she questions whether that memory is real, wondering where she truly is. She finds herself sitting on a bed, trying to make sense of everything. She is certain that she met Shane at the funeral, but after that, her memories become unclear. Then, a realization strikes her. She recalls that Shane had clearly mentioned a fake obituary. She begins to question what exactly is going on. At that moment, someone enters the room, exclaiming in concern. A girl approaches her and calls out to her as Lady Edeline. As Edeline looks at her, she immediately recognizes her. It is Genevieve, the heroine of the original story, the saintess. Edeline is left in shock as she realizes who is standing before her. Genevieve approaches her and says that if she were truly alive, she should have at least contacted her. Edeline apologizes sincerely, admitting that she deceived her. Genevieve then asks how she even managed to come there, pointing out that this place is not the same as the ducal residence. The saintess explains that His Grace brought her there. Hearing this, Edeline realizes that, as expected, Shane was the one who brought her. However, another thought immediately follows. How did he even find her? She becomes anxious, thinking that they must leave before more people discover her presence. Turning back to Genevieve, she says that there is so much she wants to say, but first, she asks if Genevieve can explain what exactly is going on. She adds that it would be even better if she could help her get out of this situation. Genevieve apologizes, saying that if she does that, His Grace will be terribly angry with her. Edeline insists that Shane is her husband, and if it is his wife's request, he will surely listen. Genevieve reacts with confusion, repeating the word husband. Edeline, puzzled by her reaction, questions it. Genevieve then explains sadly that she assumes Edeline thought that because of the marriage article. Edeline becomes confused, wondering why she is reacting like that, and brings up the article again, stating that Genevieve got married. Genevieve confirms that she did get married. Edeline insists that if it is Shane, he will listen to his wife. However, Genevieve clarifies that her partner is not Duke Blancard. Shocked, Edeline asks what she means. Genevieve explains that although the newspaper was designed to look as though she married the Duke, it never actually mentioned that he was her husband. Edeline finds it impossible to believe. At that moment, she recalls Shane's words that if he had known she would fall for something as trivial as a fake obituary, he would have published it sooner. She realizes that her mother's obituary and the marriage article that made it seem as though Genevieve and Shane were wed might have all been part of Shane's plan. She concludes that it was done to lure her out. Genevieve then explains that her actual husband is a knight of His Highness the Crown Prince's Guard, a man with neither land nor title, not Duke Blancard. Edeline is left in disbelief, questioning why Shane would go so far. Genevieve reveals that His Grace had heard the news that Edeline was alive, which is why she cooperated with him. He had said that if they did this, Edeline would surely return. Genevieve admits that she worried until the moment the article was published, fearing it might be a mistake, but she is surprised that Edeline truly came back. Edeline softly calls her name, but Genevieve immediately asks her to answer honestly. Why did she disappear 5 years ago? Edeline hesitates. In her thoughts, she admits that she cannot tell her. She cannot possibly explain that this world is actually a novel and that she is a villainess destined to die after trying to harm her. She also cannot reveal that her death is essential for Genevieve's powers to awaken. Genevieve smiles faintly, saying that she expected Edeline would not tell her so easily. Edeline apologizes again. Genevieve then says that even if she helps her now, His Grace will not spare her or her husband. However, she promises that she will ask His Highness the Crown Prince for help, so that Edeline can at least leave the room. Edeline calls her name again, feeling conflicted. In her thoughts, she realizes that whatever is happening, if Genevieve is going this far, then Shane must truly be out of control. She thanks her sincerely. Genevieve calls her name once more, and when Edeline responds, she gently asks whether someday she will tell her why she left them for 5 years. Edeline falls silent. She reflects that now that the story has strayed from the novel's original flow, no one knows what will become of her life. More than anyone, she wishes she could tell the truth and find her place. However, she has seen in her dreams that doing so would only endanger them all. Still, She says that she will try, thinking that she will tell her after everything is resolved. Genevieve smiles and says that she will wait. In her own thoughts, she admits that the one who wishes to hear that truth the most is someone else. The scene shifts to the Duke Blancard's residence, inside Shane's office. Shane quietly calls Edeline's name. In his thoughts, he reflects that the Edeline he saw again after 5 years was thinner than he remembered. He considers that if she chose to leave his side even after making such a decision, then she should have at least lived well. However, he immediately dismisses such sentiments as meaningless. He concludes that she will never be able to leave him again. If there is anything to resent, it should be the fate that brought them together. His thoughts drift back to the past, to when they first met 10 years ago. A flashback appears. Edeline, still very young, looks at him and greets him, asking if he is her fiancé. Shane looks at her in return, thinking that this child is his fiancée, the young lady of House Bertrand. House Bertrand is known for its fertile lands and immense wealth, with thriving businesses. Because of this, the imperial family had wished to form a direct alliance with the Bertrands. After repeated refusals, they eventually chose an alternative, to make him the son of an imperial princess, the son-in-law of House Bertrand. As he looks at her, he reflects that neither of them truly cared about who the other was at that time. He greets her formally and expresses that he looks forward to their acquaintance. At that time, he had truly believed that, before meeting Edeline. Edeline has always had a somewhat unique side to her. As Shane looks at her, he thinks further that she is the type who can answer difficult topics with ease, only to quickly pretend that she does not know anything. He notices how she often rudely stares at his face while pretending to look elsewhere. Yet, to him, that is all there is to it. For someone like him, who finds the entire world boring due to his special abilities that set him apart from others, it is just enough to catch his attention. Back then, being with anyone feels no different from being alone, and he concludes that it is probably because everything is simply boring. A memory surfaces of his parents arguing. His mother tells his father not to bring that child in front of her, saying that his blue eyes staring at her feel creepy. His father questions her, reminding her that Shane is their son. However, his mother insists that he is not like a child at all and questions whether he can even be considered normal. She wonders how she is supposed to feel affection for someone like him. Hearing those words, Shane reflects that even his own mother found him unsettling. Yet, he thinks that her words did not hurt him much. Adults have always been unable to hide their unease around him, since he is not like other children. As proof of that, he realizes that he did not feel any grief even when his mother died. He concludes that it has always been like that. Then, another memory overlaps. Edeline telling him to stay with her and not to shut himself away alone. He recalls that at the moment she held him and comforted him at the funeral, her warmth felt so intense that he even wished he could truly feel sadness. From that moment on, although he had once believed it did not matter who his fiancée was, he finds himself glad that it is Edeline. He realizes something has changed. Life is no longer boring. He is surprised that he can feel such emotions for someone, feelings that would not have moved him before. He remembers her showing him the fluttering snow and asking him to look at it. In his thoughts, he recognizes that things become likable simply because it is her. When she asks if it is beautiful, he agrees. Deep inside, he acknowledges that she is the only color in his world. Because of that, he decides that he will never give her to anyone. But fate moves in the exact opposite direction of his wishes. Edeline declares that she wants to break off their engagement. Shane asks her if he has done something wrong and tells her to say it if he has. She denies it, saying that it is nothing like that, and apologizes. As she leaves, he calls out for her to wait. Fortunately, since their engagement was arranged by the imperial family, it is not truly broken. However, Edeline begins to avoid him. At one point, she tells him that if he ever meets someone he truly loves, he must be honest with his feelings and claim them. He agrees, saying that he understands. To him, it feels as though she has found someone new in her life besides him. Every time he sees her acting as if she already knows his entire future, he feels as though his insides are rotting away. Still, he pretends to remain calm, waiting for the day she will eventually return to him. But what returns to him instead is her empty death. As she lies dying, he calls out her name. She apologizes to him. He reminds her that she once told him not to be alone, yet she tells him to forget her and live happily. He cannot accept it. He reminds her that she said she would stay by his side. In his heart, he calls her his only color, his only emotion, his violet, his only love, Edeline Bertrand. The day she dies, his world shatters into pieces. Time passes, and one day, when his soul feels as though it has died and only an empty shell remains, he receives a letter from the Crown Prince. He sits at a table, reading it carefully. The letter states that the prince knows Shane is not in his right mind these days, but the matter is urgent. It reminds him of the servant Edeline used to keep around. While investigating a group illegally trafficking monster byproducts, they discovered that the group's leader, Lucian Cole, frequently met with that servant. Starting 6 years ago, the servant had been coming and going as if it were his own house. The letter points out that Lucian has the ability to fabricate information, which makes it suspicious that Edeline would associate with someone like him. Reading this, a possibility comes to Shane's mind. A subordinate then reports that they have confirmed Edeline met Lucian Cole on the day of the accident. At that moment, Shane realizes the truth, that her death may have been nothing more than a carefully staged act. The despair and betrayal he feels upon realizing that her death was a lie are overwhelming. Yet, at the same time, he experiences an unexpected sense of ecstasy as he imagines the moment he will find her. Leaning back in his chair, he lets out a hollow laugh. He admits that he does not know why she went to such lengths to leave him, but he decides that he will think about that only after he has her completely by his side again. He calls her name once more in his thoughts. The scene shifts back to Edeline. A few days have passed since Genevieve left. During that time, Edeline has tried to escape, but the room is located high above the ground, and all she can see outside the window is a vast forest. With no way out, she is forced to give up. Lying on the bed, she reflects on her situation, thinking that it is truly a difficult predicament. She has no idea what Shane is planning and cannot understand what is going on in her former fiancé's mind. Since she has not seen him since that day, she has no chance to ask him directly. Suddenly, someone enters the room, exclaiming in concern. Hearing the voice, Edeline turns her head and freezes. It is her mother, Emma Bertrand, the Marchioness of the Bertrand family. Her mother rushes toward her and embraces her tightly, calling her daughter. In that moment, Edeline realizes that it is true. Shane really did fake her mother's obituary. She feels a strange sense of relief, but at the same time, she cannot understand what he is thinking by bringing her mother here. Soon after, 2 men enter the room, telling Emma to calm down. As Edeline looks at them, she is stunned. They are her family, her father, Gregory Bertrand, the Marquis of the Bertrand family, along with her 2 brothers. The brown-haired one is Jeff Bertrand, her second brother, and the golden-haired one is Patrick Bertrand, her eldest brother. She cannot believe that her father and brothers are here as well. Patrick steps forward and gently asks their mother to step back, warning that they cannot fully trust the Duke of Blancard yet. Jeff then remarks that the Duke has certainly found a woman who looks exactly like her. Hearing that, Edeline immediately thinks of Genevieve. Jeff insists that he personally placed his sister into the coffin and questions how anyone could expect him to believe that this woman is truly Edeline. In response, Shane explains that at that time, Edeline had been in a state of suspended animation and that the saintess's power had reached its limit back then. Patrick, confused, asks what he means by the saintess's power. At that moment, Genevieve steps forward and explains that Edeline did not die immediately after the attack. She says that the saintess's power reached her just in time, and before the coffin was buried during the mourning period, they took her out. Afterward, they continued assisting the saintess in attempting to revive her. She adds that the goddess answered 5 years of prayers for her benefactor, Lady Edeline, and that those 5 years were not wasted at all. Hearing this, Edeline inwardly thinks that these people are even bigger scammers than she is, questioning whether even Genevieve has become part of it. Jeff then turns to Shane and asks why he did not explain all of this from the beginning. Shane replies that they had already concluded Edeline's death was entirely his fault due to his failure to strengthen the ducal estate's security, and they never gave him a chance to explain further. He adds that since he was not certain the method would succeed, he believed it would not be too late to speak after it did. Patrick then realizes that this must be the reason Shane never formally annulled the engagement. Shane confirms that he has never considered anyone other than Edeline. As Edeline looks at him, he calmly declares that since, by divine grace, she has returned, he intends to proceed with the wedding as soon as possible. Hearing this, Edeline is stunned, thinking that a wedding is completely ridiculous and hoping someone will object. However, everyone is so shocked that no one manages to respond, allowing Shane's words to pass unchallenged. Patrick steps forward and points out that the body they confirmed that day was clearly real. Before he can continue, Jeff interrupts him, saying that it is enough and that they cannot keep doubting Shane if things have already gone this far. Jeff then turns to Edeline and apologizes, admitting that when a wish longed for so desperately finally comes true, it is difficult to believe it immediately. He acknowledges that it is merely an excuse, but insists that he is truly glad she has returned. Hearing his words, Edeline reflects that these are the people she left behind of her own will in order to survive. She had believed they would live well even without her. However, facing them like this without any preparation, she realizes that at least for now, she cannot turn away from her family. She responds softly, saying that she missed them too, her mother and father. Later, at the Bertrand Marquis estate, she reflects that getting out of that room was good for now, but the situation is still far from resolved. Jeff assures her that they will take care of everything and put things back in order. Her mother adds that their daughter does not have to worry about anything. Edeline thinks to herself that, in the end, she has returned home. Jeff then warns her never to do anything dangerous again, while Patrick tells her that she must still be confused and should rest. She agrees and heads toward her room. Sitting on her bed, she feels that something is strange. She recalls that her parents and brothers were not originally like this. They were supposed to be cold, distant, and proper members of a villainous family. She cannot understand why they are suddenly so affectionate. Lost in thought, she hears someone enter the room. The voice remarks that she has finally returned. When she turns, she sees Lloyd. He asks where she has been all this time and explains that he had been observing the situation near the estate where she was confined. When he saw her being moved to the Marquis estate, he followed her. She admits that she had been secretly worried that Shane might have harmed him and expresses relief that he is safe. She adds that she did expect he would manage to escape. Lloyd responds confidently that of course he would. Then he asks what exactly is going on, pointing out that the Duke was supposed to have married the saintess. Edeline holds her head, saying that things seem to have become somewhat twisted. She reflects that it was not easy for her to turn her back on everyone and leave, yet all her efforts until now have become meaningless. She wonders what she should do next. Lloyd tells her that if she is going to sleep, she should at least lie properly on the bed. She refuses, thinking that if she falls asleep now, she will only have another nightmare. Lloyd challenges her, asking if she's planning to give up like this. He insists that if she is not, then she must sleep and conserve her strength. Realizing he is right, she agrees. As she lies down, she resolves that even if she ends up hurting her family, even if her fiancé comes to hate her, no matter what she has to do, she will survive in this world. Eventually, she falls asleep. Soon after, news spreads everywhere. The saintess's miracle is said to have revived her benefactor, as the daughter of the Bertrand family opens her eyes after 5 years. Genevieve is seen speaking publicly, saying that Lady Edeline is like an older sister to her and that she wanted to repay her kindness somehow. She adds that to Lady Edeline, who once saved her life, she is beyond happy to give the light of life once more. Reading the newspaper, Edeline realizes that her revival has been publicly announced to the entire world. She notes that with this much attention on her, it will become even harder to plan an escape. Another headline declares that the Duke of Blancard has stated that the Marquis's daughter is the only woman in his life. Edeline realizes that while keeping her locked up, Shane has been laying all this groundwork. Holding the newspaper, she mutters internally that he is truly an incredible scammer. At that moment, Shane approaches her and remarks that such words are too harsh for her fiancé. She responds coldly that if he is satisfied, he should leave, since it is his house after all. He smiles and replies that he cannot do that because he has not even finished the tea her mother prepared. Her attempt to form a new escape plan quickly becomes meaningless, as Shane begins visiting her every single day. Her family, in a way, becomes accomplices to his control over her. Even outside the locked room, the entire world begins to feel like a prison, with her family acting as its wardens. Now, she finds herself waiting for another person, an old friend she is just as reluctant to see as Shane. Soon, he arrives and remarks that she truly is alive. He is Edwin, the crown prince of the Green Windsor Empire. Edeline recalls that in the original novel, she was not simply a villainess. She was ultimately killed by someone who loved the heroine. It could be seen as the consequence of her own misdeeds. In other words, the original male lead candidates are the prime suspects. Besides Shane, there were 3 other candidates: a mage who controls monsters, a crime organization boss operating in the underground, and the crown prince himself, who stands at the peak of power while weaving schemes. She greets Edwin, noting that he does not seem surprised at all. He replies that he is actually very surprised and asks why she orchestrated something like this. Edeline thinks that, to be honest, she had initially suspected Edwin of being the one who killed her. He continues, saying that she seems to be hiding quite a lot and questions whether she committed some kind of crime. Edeline denies it. Edwin presses further, pointing out that whatever crime she may have committed, there are ways to resolve it. Unlike his gentle and mild parents, his personality is sharp and ruthless. He urges her to answer quickly. She hesitates, thinking that she cannot reveal the truth, that if she had not run away, she would have died. She remembers how she once resolved to reveal everything, only to see in a nightmare that even the person who learned the truth died horribly. Because of that, she knows she absolutely cannot say it. Edwin eventually relents, saying that he will hear it another time. He then turns to Shane and asks about the matter he mentioned. Shane calmly declares that they will proceed with the wedding as soon as possible. Edwin is taken aback and questions the sudden announcement of a wedding. Shane explains that their engagement had already received the Emperor's approval long ago, so he is merely informing him in advance. Edwin then considers Edeline's opinion. She immediately states that she never agreed to this. In her thoughts, she realizes that, as expected, any discussion is completely impossible. Edwin dismisses the situation, saying that Shane will proceed regardless of opposition. Soon after, the Empire is thrown into an uproar. The 3 of them, Edwin, Shane, and Edeline, stand outside the palace. Edwin prepares to leave, but before doing so, he takes Edeline's hand and kisses it, welcoming her back. She responds coldly, saying that she does not feel any sincerity from him. He admits honestly that dealing with Shane lately had become difficult. He describes how Shane would fall into fits of rage, then suddenly become hollow, as if ready to burn the entire empire down if it meant bringing her back to life. He adds that it is not only because of Shane. He, as crown prince, also hopes to borrow her ability to deceive even the world someday. After Edwin leaves, Edeline's return to society is arranged. The stage is set for a church charity gala before the wedding, a public event meant to display her, alongside the saintess, the crown prince, and Shane. As preparations begin, a woman approaches her and says that today they will take her measurements, and since the schedule is tight, they must proceed quickly. Edeline apologizes, saying that she must have many other clients. The woman, Rachel, laughs and replies that she could never ignore Jeff's request. She is the owner of the famous boutique Madame Harper, known for her distinguished clientele and proud demeanor. However, it turns out that she is also Jeff's longtime business partner, which is why she personally handles Edeline's outfits. Edeline realizes that Jeff must have been her biggest investor all along, contrary to her belief that he was merely traveling and running a small business. She asks if there is anything else that needs to be prepared. Her mother immediately responds that there is far too much to do. She explains that although they preserved Edeline's old dresses, they are now outdated, so everything must be bought anew. Edeline tries to protest, but Patrick gently intervenes, telling their mother that they have already chosen most of the important things and can prepare the rest slowly, as they now have plenty of time. Hearing this, their mother becomes emotional and begins to cry, repeating that they have plenty of time now. Watching her, Edeline feels overwhelmed and thinks that she might be going crazy. Patrick reassures their mother that there is no rush, and she agrees. He then turns to Edeline, asking if she agrees as well. She responds quietly, but in her thoughts, she notices something unsettling in his gaze. She realizes that her elder brother still does not fully trust her. At the same time, she considers that if she uses this carefully, it might create another opportunity for her to escape. It is the day of the function. Edeline prepares herself, and as she steps out, murmurs immediately spread among the crowd. People begin whispering in shock, wondering if their eyes are deceiving them. They point at her, saying that it is impossible and questioning whether the person entering is truly Edeline Bertrand. Some recall that she was said to have died 5 years ago and cannot understand how such a thing could happen. Hearing the whispers, Edeline thinks that, as expected, all eyes are on her. She considers it fortunate that Shane is too busy to attend with her, otherwise he would not have tolerated such gossip. She reflects on how ironic it is that she feels relieved to be attending a ball with her brother instead. Standing beside her, Patrick remarks that her brother is clearly a better companion than her fiancé and asks if she agrees. She denies it, but Patrick simply smiles and comments that it is better this way, adding that Shane should not witness such a spectacle. Edeline brushes off the topic, saying that there is no need to talk about someone who is not even present. Patrick questions her tone, but she simply thinks that, as he said, it is better that she came with him instead of Shane. However, she also realizes that sneaking away again without Shane noticing will be difficult. Everyone is too focused on her return, and even her own family does not fully trust her yet. She understands that one wrong move could ruin everything, so she needs to find another way. At that moment, someone calls out to her. Turning around, she sees Genevieve approaching. Genevieve expresses relief that Edeline made it out safely. Edeline responds that she heard Genevieve was the one who helped her escape from the mansion and wonders what she should call her now, questioning whether she should address her as the saintess instead of by name. Genevieve immediately dismisses that, saying it is unnecessary and reminding her that everyone knows Edeline is her benefactor. Surprised, Edeline questions that title and reminds her that she had asked her not to use it. Genevieve apologizes, explaining that she has been too busy to visit her. Edeline tells her that there is nothing to apologize for and adds that the one who should be apologizing is someone else. At that moment, Edwin appears and asks why they are talking about him. Patrick greets him respectfully, and Edwin acknowledges him. Jeff excuses himself, saying he will fetch something to drink, leaving the conversation to the others. Edwin then turns to Edeline and observes that the bride-to-be does not look happy about her upcoming wedding. He comments that she looks exhausted. Edeline replies that she is not exactly thrilled to see him either. He remarks that such a reaction is only natural. She then criticizes him, saying she can forgive him for not stopping her marriage, but not for failing to properly look after Genevieve. She questions whether that is not going too far. Genevieve is taken aback by this statement. From Lloyd's investigation, Edeline already knows that Genevieve has been handling an overwhelming workload alone. Exterminating monsters is only the beginning. She is constantly sent on expeditions to purify contamination from their corpses, while also attending imperial and church events. Even for someone as capable as Genevieve, it is clearly too much, leaving her no time to rest. Genevieve insists that she is fine, explaining that she has some self-healing ability, even if it is not perfect. Edeline immediately tells her to stop. Edwin acknowledges that Edeline is not wrong, but points out that if Edeline had not faked her death instead of actually protecting Genevieve, Shane would not have piled all that work onto her as a form of revenge. Edeline is left speechless, realizing that she never expected things to turn out this way. According to the original story, by now, the final villain, the Dark Sorcerer, should have been defeated, and everything should have reached a happy ending. However, Lloyd's investigation reveals that after the attack 5 years ago, the Dark Sorcerer completely vanished. If events had followed the original story, he should have continued targeting Genevieve until he was eventually defeated. Edeline begins to suspect that things may have gone wrong because she did not actually die as she was supposed to in the novel. Looking at Genevieve, she realizes that this means her own survival is not guaranteed either. More importantly, as long as the Dark Sorcerer remains at large, the world cannot reach a happy ending. She concludes that he must be captured as soon as possible. The problem is that all she knows is that he is a noble of the Empire. To access that kind of information without raising suspicion, she realizes that marrying Shane and blending into high society may be her only option. As she falls into thought, Edwin smiles and remarks that it looks like she is already planning another escape. He then suggests to Genevieve that they should go pay their respects to the Marchioness. Genevieve agrees and bids Edeline farewell. Edeline responds politely, telling her to take care. Watching them leave, Edeline realizes that this is her chance. With both her brother and Genevieve gone, she decides to search the ballroom for any clues about the sorcerer. Even the smallest lead could be useful. However, before she can begin, someone suddenly calls out to her from behind, asking if she is Edeline Bertrand. When she turns, she sees a young man who questions whether she is truly Edeline or just a con artist pretending to be her. Internally, she feels annoyed, thinking that she cannot even begin her investigation before someone starts a fight. She calmly asks who he is. The boy responds rudely, saying it would not matter even if he told her. She notices the smell of alcohol and realizes that he is drunk, pointing out that alcohol is not even served at church events. She becomes aware that people are watching. They were already curious about her return, and now they are even more interested. The boy mockingly offers her a drink and accuses her of being a fake impersonating a dead woman. Edeline responds calmly, stating that the saintess, her family, and even the crown prince have acknowledged her identity. She questions whether she really needs to prove it to him as well. He insists that she does, claiming that if she cannot prove it, she will be exposed. She realizes that dragging this out will only draw more attention, but she has no choice but to deal with him. The boy continues, arguing that someone who has been dead for 5 years is practically a corpse and that resurrection makes no sense. To his surprise, Edeline agrees, saying that his reasoning is fair. Confused, he asks why she is agreeing. She then calmly reframes his argument, stating that according to his logic, if she cannot prove her identity, then she must be a fake. That would mean Duke Blancard and Saintess Genevieve are her accomplices, and even the Crown Prince is just an unfortunate victim deceived by her. The boy protests, claiming he never said that. Ignoring him, she continues, implying that the Bertrand family must be too foolish to recognize their own daughter's death and that the Saintess and Blancard are colluding to deceive the entire world. As people begin to gather and watch, she adds that he must believe himself to be the only one clever enough to see through it all and expose such corruption. With a faint smile, she asks if that is what he truly wanted to say. The boy becomes furious, accusing her of twisting his words. Edeline observes that he cannot win with words and is now likely to resort to violence. Predicting his behavior, she decides that it might be easier to simply take the hit and end the situation quickly, even considering reporting him to the Emperor later. However, before anything can happen, the boy is suddenly knocked to the ground. The crowd gasps. Shane appears, holding Edeline protectively as he kicks the boy aside. Stunned, Edeline wonders what Shane is doing there, especially since he had claimed to be too busy to attend. Still holding her, Shane coldly demands that she explain herself. Patrick approaches Lloyd and suggests that they make a deal. Lloyd questions what kind of deal he could possibly offer, saying that he has nothing that would interest a young master like him. Patrick simply smiles and replies that it is too early to jump to conclusions before even hearing him out. As he observes Lloyd, Patrick recalls that he is the boy Edeline once brought home and kept by her side ever since. He does not know why she took him in, but he remembers that Lloyd is the same boy who stayed by his sister's side during the 5 years she was gone. Patrick urges him to at least listen, saying that it will not be a bad deal for him. Lloyd remains firm, stating that even so, his answer will not change. Patrick clarifies that he is not asking him to betray his master. He explains that he did not call him there to dig into Edeline's secrets, but simply wants to know what his sister is searching for. He adds that buying information through Lucian must cost him a fortune. The name Lucian Cole comes up, the boss of an underground criminal organization that rules the back alleys, a man who will do anything for money. Even something as dangerous as faking the death of a marquis's daughter is within his reach. Thanks to him, Edeline was able to safely escape the mansion 5 years ago. He always carries out his tasks thoroughly, but his price is just as extreme as the risks involved. Lloyd realizes that Patrick is already aware of this. He reflects that although their funds are not yet exhausted, his master wishes to leave this place, so he must conserve as much as possible. He warns Patrick that his information comes at a high price and asks if he is truly willing to pay it. Patrick responds without hesitation, offering to pay double what Lloyd gives to Lucian. In return, he asks Lloyd to tell him why Edeline left them. He points out that Lloyd must have noticed it as well, that unless they solve the root problem, she will never truly be free. Lloyd pauses and reflects on the past. From the day Edeline saved him when he lay wounded during Lucian Cole's trial until now, he has never once questioned her orders. His only mission has been to carry them out. However, deep down, behind her always composed expression, he has sensed a desperation, as if she were someone being hunted. He acknowledges that Edeline is his master, his savior, and his only family, and that he would do anything for her. Even so, he admits that he does not know the reason why she left. Instead, he reveals that there was something she asked him to investigate. Patrick asks what it is. Lloyd explains that she wanted information about the one targeting Saintess Genevieve, as well as details about a mage who controls monsters. Patrick is surprised, repeating that it involves the saintess and a mage, and questioning what she could possibly want with that. Lloyd admits that he does not know. Patrick begins to think it through. He reasons that even with political pressure or interference from neighboring countries, the saintess should be the safest person in the empire. As for a mage controlling monsters, he finds it hard to believe such a thing could exist. Lloyd asks if he has ever heard of anything like that. Patrick replies that it is impossible. Monsters are like impurities of natural mana. Even if they appear intelligent, they are closer to phenomena that mimic biological instincts. He concedes that if it were dark magic, it might be conceivable, but humans cannot control them. If someone truly can, then that person is no longer human, they have reached the level of a god. He decides that he will personally investigate this matter further and inform Lloyd of what he finds. Until then, he instructs him to stay on standby. Lloyd agrees, but then adds that Edeline also asked him to investigate the saintess's husband. Patrick questions why that would matter now. Lloyd explains that Edeline said that if the man turns out to be unpleasant, she will make the saintess get a divorce. Patrick reacts with disbelief, asking whether she thinks the saintess is her own daughter. Lloyd remarks that he had originally intended to tell Edeline that Patrick called him a rat, but now he cannot do so since he has already revealed her orders behind her back. Patrick responds that cooperating with them is for Edeline's own good, calling Lloyd a good little squeaker. He insists that they only want to protect their youngest. Lloyd then points out that the one obstructing that goal does not seem to be Shane Blancard. Patrick agrees, stating that for now, Shane is an ally, since their goals align. In his thoughts, he acknowledges that above all, they cannot afford to lose Edeline a second time. At present, there is no one better than Shane to keep her from running away. He concludes firmly that the Bertrand family will not make the same mistake twice. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Genevieve is told that it is time for her to retire for the evening. She agrees outwardly, but inwardly she feels reluctant. She does not want to return, knowing that there is no one waiting for her there. She reflects that this loneliness is nothing new. Her husband, a knight of the Crown Prince's guard, practically lives at the imperial palace. As the saintess, she cannot leave the church freely either. Their marriage was never built on love, so being apart does not trouble her deeply. Still, she admits that she only married because she desired a family. It disappoints her that she still feels so empty. She considers that things might have been different if they had a child, but with her overwhelming schedule, pregnancy and childbirth are out of the question. Moreover, she is uncertain whether the goddess's protection would even extend to a child. She reflects on the abilities granted to her by the goddess, the ability to not feel hunger, to survive without sleep, and to keep moving no matter how exhausted she becomes. In truth, these blessings feel more like a curse of endless labor. Thinking about how these powers awakened, she remembers Edeline. She admits that Edeline may not truly understand what she means to her. Edeline was the only person in her life who was completely on her side. When Edeline died before her eyes, she felt as though she could never forgive herself. Enduring the grueling workload imposed by the Duke for 5 years became her way of atoning for the death of her savior. Later, she stands with a short-haired girl who mentions that winter is approaching and asks if she will soon leave for another long purification expedition. Genevieve replies that the Pope is unwell and has asked her to remain by his side this winter, as he has many tasks for her. The girl comments that she is already busy enough and will soon be officiating the wedding for the Blancard Duchy, questioning whether it is not too much to ask of her. Genevieve insists that she must do it, as both His Grace and Lady Bertrand are her saviors. The girl hesitates, clearly wanting to say something about the Duke and the saintess. Genevieve senses that she is referring to the rumors that they are lovers. She wonders where such rumors keep coming from, reminding herself that she is already married. She reflects that although her heart always felt restless when she stood before the Duke, it was not because of affection, but because she was afraid. Frustrated, she decides that she needs to have a child as soon as possible, believing that it will finally put an end to such rumors. Suddenly, the girl calls out an alarm. Genevieve is startled as the girl urgently tells her to get down. 2 weeks after the attack incident, everything is finally set at the Grand Cathedral of Green Windsor. Inside the sacred hall, the ceremony begins. The announcement is made for the groom, Shane Blancard, and the bride, Edeline Bertrand, to enter. As they step forward together on their wedding day, Edeline thinks to herself that the day has finally come. She reflects that she should have at least dated someone while running away from all of this, someone who could have whisked her away from this wedding hall instead of standing here now. The saintess announces the couple, declaring them husband and wife. She proclaims that by the name of the goddess, they are now bound together, and offers her blessing for their future. Edeline looks at Genevieve and thinks that she looks genuinely happy, completely unaware of what Edeline is feeling inside. She notices Genevieve's cheek and wonders if she has hurt it again. Genevieve laughs softly, and Edeline thinks that if things had gone the way they were supposed to, Genevieve would have been the shining, happy heroine of a perfect story. Shane leans slightly toward Edeline and tells her to lift her head and smile, saying she should look bright today. Edeline immediately replies that it is a forced marriage, so how is she supposed to smile? Shane responds that if it were him, he thinks he could smile. Nearby, Edeline's mother is deeply emotional, while Patrick tells her not to cry because it is supposed to be a happy day. Their father murmurs that everything still feels surreal. He adds that thanks to this marriage, the people Edeline loves are safe, and says it is all because of his wife. Edeline looks at Shane and bluntly tells him that he is seriously insane. The guests clap around them. Shane simply smiles and thanks her for the compliment, then gently kisses her head, telling her to smile even if it is only like that. Edeline tells him to wait, then looks at him in confusion, thinking that she still does not truly understand why Shane is insisting on this marriage. However, she is certain of one thing: this marriage was never born from love. If it were, he would not have ignored her refusal and forced it through. She concludes that it must be revenge against the fiancé who abandoned him. But then she looks at Shane and wonders why he is smiling so happily, as if he has already obtained the whole world. The ceremony ends with them officially pronounced husband and wife. Later, at the ducal mansion reception room, the atmosphere is noisy. The saintess has become completely drunk from celebratory wine. Edeline awkwardly apologizes, while Genevieve, now visibly intoxicated, repeats emotional questions, asking why everything turned out this way. Edeline tries to comfort her. At that moment, Edwin arrives and apologizes for interrupting their first night, saying they should treat it as a small after-party since there was no proper reception. He remarks that if they helped with this ridiculous wedding, they should endure this much too. He adds that if they had allowed Shane to leave the church earlier, he would have arrived sooner. Edeline sits beside Shane, thinking that she wants to rest, but cannot leave first and abandon the crown prince and saintess. Edwin then mentions that Genevieve has been unwell because of the recent attack. Edeline immediately reacts in shock and asks about the attack. Edwin casually explains that 2 weeks ago, someone shot an arrow at Genevieve. Edeline is stunned and asks what happened to the culprit. Edwin replies that they still have not been caught, which is why the saintess had to step out cautiously. Edeline is shocked, realizing that Genevieve, who should have been safe for 5 years, was attacked so suddenly. Shane comments that Genevieve must have been very startled and mentions that she still went back to work right after the incident. Edwin adds that it was very brave of her. Edeline sits beside Genevieve and holds her hand. Genevieve, emotional and slightly drunk, tells Edeline that none of that matters to her. What truly upsets her is that Edeline still does not take care of herself even after returning. She says she only worries about others and that she also wants to protect Edeline. She becomes overwhelmed and tearful. Edeline apologizes softly. Genevieve immediately refuses the apology and instead places a bracelet into Edeline's hand. She explains that she blessed it herself. She did not want to imagine it, but if Edeline is ever in danger, she should break the bracelet so she can call her, and she will come to save her no matter what. Genevieve then becomes too overwhelmed and nearly collapses. Edeline calls her name in concern, while Edwin comments that she has drunk too much. Edeline thinks silently that she never wanted to keep secrets or hurt anyone. She once imagined a world where they could all smile together, free of pain, where she could happily watch Genevieve and Shane without guilt. But that kind of happiness was never meant for her. To escape that suffocating nightmare, she deceived the people she loved. Genevieve awakened as the saintess, and Edeline believed her role was complete. But the world did not seem to agree, because Edeline Bertrand is still alive. And because of that, Genevieve is still facing dangers she should never have faced. Edeline wonders what she is supposed to do now. Later, she lies on the sofa, surrounded by empty bottles on the table. Drowsily, she thinks about how, and when she fell asleep, deciding she should wash up but feeling too exhausted. She considers at least moving to the bedroom. Shane appears and lifts her into his arms. She looks at him in confusion and calls his name, asking about the crown prince and Genevieve. He replies that he already saw His Highness off and that the servants took the saintess to the guest room. Edeline quietly responds that she understands, then wonders why he is being so gentle after essentially keeping her like this. She thinks that if he had been angry or cursed at her, it would have been easier to handle this strange feeling. They reach the bedroom, and Shane gently places her on the bed. Edeline tells him to go away. Shane smiles and replies that if the groom is kicked out on the first night, people will talk. He says he will just hold her and sleep. He pulls her close. He adds that if she does not sleep now, she will be bedridden tomorrow. Edeline complains that her head already feels like it is splitting. In her thoughts, she reflects that she is truly exhausted. After returning, her mother cried, Patrick fussed over her, and Jeef nagged her constantly before leaving on a long business trip. Even her family has been overwhelming. She remembers her mother saying how beautiful she looks in her wedding dress, as if it were a dream. She also recalls Genevieve telling her that she wants to help her someday. Edeline looks at Shane and realizes that everything she is enduring now is because of him keeping her here. If she does not think of it that way, she cannot endure it. She suddenly says that she hates him. Shane calmly replies that he knows. She repeats that she hates him again. He looks at her and responds that he hates her too. Then, more quietly, he adds that this is exactly why he cannot let her go. Laird greets Edeline as she comes out of her room the morning after the wedding, saying that she is finally awake, master. She groans about her hangover and asks what he has been doing since morning. Laird replies that he has already completed the morning staff roll call. At that moment, maids also greet Edeline respectfully, asking if she is awake, madam. Edeline comments in surprise that he sorted out the entire hierarchy in just one day. Laird explains that it was not particularly difficult. When the former Duke left for the territory, he took many long-serving staff members with him, and since there are now very few servants left in the mansion, inspections are simple. Edeline reacts, surprised, asking if there are really so few servants and whether they are trying to cut costs. Laird denies it and explains that the real reason is that the Duke rarely comes home, so there is not much to manage in the first place. Edeline is surprised and asks again if that is really the case, thinking that this actually allows her more freedom to move around. As she walks through the mansion, she notices that the Blancard residence has changed a lot. It once felt grand and intimidating, but now it is clean, yet strangely cold. Looking at a portrait on the wall, she recalls how she once swore she would never become the Duchess of this place. Back then, the Blancard residence felt like a fortress wrapped in thorns. She reflects that both the Duke and Duchess of Blancard were nobles of the purest imperial blood, and because of that lineage, Shane also displayed unusual maturity from a young age. Then she wonders when exactly Shane began living alone, since he used to live with the former Duke until she left Delmuse. Laird informs her that the Duke is waiting inside. Edeline says she'll go see Lucien and asks Laird to have breakfast with her before he leaves. Laird refuses, saying he would rather not face Duke Blancard, calling him unpleasant. Edeline, watching him, thinks that they have always avoided each other, or more accurately, openly ignored each other. Laird then tells her to enjoy her meal and adds that he'll check later to see if she left any vegetables. Edeline sighs, thinking that sometimes she cannot even tell who is the real guardian. She opens the door and steps inside, thinking that perhaps because it is the day after the ceremony, she feels strangely nervous. She reassures herself that nothing should happen. But Shane is already waiting inside. He asks if she slept well, calling her by name. Edeline immediately questions why he is here alone. Shane replies that Genevieve left while she was still asleep. Edeline quickly clarifies that this is not what she meant. Internally, she thinks she was asking why he is waiting alone without any attendance. Shane calmly offers her a chair, telling her to sit, and says he will bring the meal himself. She sits down and asks why he is doing everything personally instead of calling the servants. He leans slightly toward her and says he can call someone if she wants. She quickly replies that it is not necessary, thinking that he probably planned this all along and that she cannot let herself be swept away by him again. Then she mentions hearing that he is often away from home due to his duties and tells him not to worry about her and just eat. Shane then casually says that he will be staying home for a while. Edeline freezes in surprise and asks what he means. Shane sits down and calmly asks if it is strange for a newly married man to stay home. Edeline replies that it is not strange, but he is busy. She reminds him that Duke Blancard should be governing alongside the Crown Prince as a member of the Elders' Council, and even as newlyweds, he cannot afford to be idle. Shane continues eating and replies that he will simply reduce unnecessary work. He mentions that he should visit the territory to greet his father, but that can wait. Edeline thinks that if he knows that much, he should follow proper procedure instead of acting so casually. She begins thinking about the current situation. In this world, she still needs to uncover the truth behind Genevieve's attack. It is too early to confirm anything, but a mage seems like the most likely suspect. Even in the original story, such beings relentlessly targeted Genevieve's life. She wonders if the attacker is hiding nearby and whether things have already deviated too far from the original plot. She realizes that many unknown variables will now emerge. She concludes that she must stay close to Genevieve and protect her. At that moment, Shane suddenly asks if she is thinking about running away again. Edeline looks at him and internally admits that she has considered it. Out loud, she simply says no. Shane responds firmly that in case she has forgotten, he has no intention of letting her escape again. He adds that he will not allow her to wander around alone. Then, softly, he calls her his love. Meanwhile, gossip spreads through high society letters and conversations. Some speculate that the Duke and Duchess of Blancard have not been seen lately and assume they are enjoying a passionate honeymoon. Others say it would still be better if they appeared in social circles. They also remark that Edeline, the Marchioness's daughter and now Duchess of Blancard, is like someone who returned from the dead, and that she will naturally become the center of attention wherever she goes. At the church, two women discuss rumors that Duke Blancard might appear, though he rarely attends services. They also mention that the saintess will begin presiding over services starting this week. One woman dismisses the idea as a ridiculous rumor, but the other insists there must be truth behind it. She mentions hearing about an incident at the ball where the Duke allegedly nearly beat a man to death for insulting his wife. Another woman reacts in shock, and the first explains that while the news was loud at first, it quickly died down after the wedding. There are even rumors that the Duke personally intervened. The other woman says she had no idea, while another tells her to stop believing rumors blindly. Nearby, Shane and Edeline listen to the conversation. Shane quietly says that he did not kill anyone and did not intervene either. Edeline replies that she did not ask. She holds an envelope in her hand and thinks that this is the perfect excuse. She silently thanks Genevieve, thinking that without her, she would have been trapped in that mansion forever. The letter she holds is from Genevieve, who writes that she hopes Edeline is enjoying her honeymoon and invites her to attend the service, starting this week. Edeline thinks that it is fortunate the service is on a weekday, meaning fewer people will attend. Otherwise, all attention would be on them. She glances at Shane and wishes she could go alone. Shane smiles and immediately says that was never going to happen. Edeline groans internally and asks how he always knows what she is thinking, jokingly wondering if mind reading is a requirement for male leads. She reflects that since that day, Shane has never once left her side. He does not go out, and aside from being confined to the mansion, nothing has changed after the marriage. The only difference is that they now share a bed. Even then, it simply means sleeping in his arms. She had assumed marriage might come with expectations, but instead, he only holds her close without pushing further, stopping before anything becomes uncomfortable. That is why she cannot understand what he truly wants from her. At that moment, Shane holds her from behind and then takes her hand. She tells him that she is not going to run away and asks him to let go since she cannot go anywhere anyway. He simply replies no. He says he is interested in personally guiding his wife. Edeline sighs, asking what kind of person shows kindness like this. Shane kisses her hand and replies that this is simply how his kindness works. She warns him that he should be careful being kind like this because someone else might misunderstand and report him. Shane calmly replies that would never happen because he is only like this with her. Edeline looks at him closely, thinking once again how unfairly good-looking he is, and wonders why this jerk has to be so effortlessly disarming.
Kế hoạch 14.
The aftermath of the Saintess assault incident unfolds within the Green Windsor Imperial Palace. A knight arrives before His Highness and reports that the Saintess is resting, though her condition is still fragile. The shock of the attack has left her confined to her room for days, skipping meals and refusing to recover properly. His Highness remarks with mild amusement that the Saintess is usually a lively and brave girl, even bold enough to leave her loving husband waiting at the door. The knight corrects him, explaining that she did not actually abandon her husband. Rather, he is the one waiting outside of his own will, remaining on duty as always. The knight is revealed to be Harrison, an Imperial Palace guard and the husband of Saintess Genevieve. His Highness, observing the situation, jokes that if a few more words are added, Harrison's face might explode from embarrassment, wondering how such a straightforward man could ever confess his feelings. Harrison humbly admits that he does not consider himself worthy of the Saintess and says that simply staying by her side is enough for him, even if he must suppress any impure thoughts. Hearing this, the Saintess suddenly proposes marriage, stating that since he already likes her and she likes him too, they should get married. His Highness is stunned, internally calling it an epic proposal. The conversation shifts when another presence notes that the Saintess's holy power has grown stronger after marriage. His Highness recalls how rumors spread that her powers increased due to love, but he strangely feels the surge did not begin after marriage alone. It intensified after her connection with Edeline. Meanwhile, at Shane's residence, Laird confronts Edeline, questioning whether she has multiple lives or a strange inclination towards suffering. Edeline dismisses it casually, stating her body simply moved on its own. Lyre remarks that this is precisely why she keeps ending up in dangerous situations. Edeline reveals that thanks to Lyre's investigation, she has obtained a clue about the sorcerer. She explains her reasoning. A perfectly normal individual would not suddenly lose control and attempt to attack the saintess under heavy protection. This suggests the presence of a hidden sorcerer, likely among those present at the scene, controlling the attacker from within. Lyre confirms her reckless behavior, noting she charged into danger without hesitation. Edeline defends herself, saying she had Shane there with her and trusted that safety. Lyre dryly reminds her that Shane is precisely the reason she is now trapped, kidnapped, confined, and forcibly married. Edeline responds that Shane, in his own way, does not intend to let her die or leave freely. She concludes that staying beside him might ironically be the safest place for now. Lyre acknowledges her logic, though still unimpressed. Edeline then instructs him to compile a list of nobles present during the attack, narrowing the suspects to those within the empire. Lyre complies and departs. Left alone, Edeline reflects that the sorcerer was definitely present during the incident and is likely still monitoring events. She realizes she has no leads yet, but this attack has ironically given her the first direction in her investigation. Her thoughts drift unexpectedly to Shane. She questions why she is thinking of him and immediately dismisses it, convincing herself it is only because solitude triggers nightmares. She forces herself to sleep. Shane enters her room later and gently touches her face, confirming she is awake. He informs her that the interrogation of the suspect took longer than expected, as they needed to confirm details about an attempted assassination of the saintess. He also reassures her that the cold has fully healed and no further medication is needed. Edeline internally reacts with unease, realizing that even in such violent moments, Shane behaves as if his own life is tied to hers. She becomes increasingly aware of his intense emotional fixation. Shane remains beside her, and she begins to interpret his presence as something inescapable. She tells herself she can endure anything, even his lingering resentment or possible hatred, but what she cannot accept is being trapped in this emotional cage. She finally rises and asks him directly why he is doing all this to her, stating that she has already fulfilled every condition expected of her. She insists that she thought marriage would eventually free her once he was satisfied, but instead nothing has changed. She confesses that she cannot remain by his side anymore, as his presence hurts too much. She admits she once believed she would be safe with him, but now realizes she cannot bear it any longer. She tells him she wants to be released. Shane, however, calmly responds that her words cannot hurt him. He leans in and kisses her, stating that he has already given up on the idea that she might ever love him in return. Then, without hesitation, he pulls her down, deepening the kiss with overwhelming intensity, as though surrendering completely to his unresolved emotions. Edeline is left stunned, realizing that this confrontation has taken an unexpected turn, one she can no longer control. Edeline, confused, comments that he is being a bit strange. Shane calmly accepts it as a compliment. She then explains that she is not looking for a replacement for Daisy. She is simply scared of losing anyone, whether person or animal. In response, Shane grabs both of her hands and firmly promises that he will stay by her side forever and never leave her alone, so she will never have to be afraid again. Back in the present, Edeline reflects that even back then, she did not see Shane as a child who needed protection, but rather as something deeper, Shane Blancard himself. She recalls that she always assumed his feelings were only innocent childhood attachment that would fade with time. Yet, despite how coldly she once treated him, he never let go. She realizes she has already lost in ways she did not notice. Later, Edeline sits in front of the mirror as a maid helps her prepare. Her mother enters, asking if she is not ready yet, reminding her that the Empress herself has summoned her and she must not be late. Edeline replies that she is almost finished. Her mother smiles emotionally, saying it feels like a dream to once again see her daughter going to the imperial palace. She promises to prepare the carriage and tells her to take her time. Watching her mother, Edeline reflects inwardly on her guilt. She feels as though it binds her endlessly because she has done things she can never proudly seek forgiveness for, things involving Shane, Genevieve, and her family. She wants to explain everything, but fears that if the secret is revealed, just like in her nightmare, those who hear it may die. That fear has haunted her for so long. However, she realizes something strange. Since returning to the capital, she has not experienced a single nightmare. The absence unsettles her. She wonders if the story where Edeline must die has already ended. If so, then perhaps her assumptions were wrong from the beginning. Maybe this is no longer a tragic fate story. She quickly corrects herself, deciding not to jump to conclusions. Regardless of how the story changes, her goal remains the same. She must capture the sorcerer so Genevieve and the world can be safe. And once that is done, she thinks maybe things could be different. Maybe even if this world does not follow the original romance route, she could still remain beside Shane, not as a villain running from fate, but as someone who finally chooses her own ending. For now, she exhales softly and tells herself to focus. Her first step remains the same. She must catch the mastermind. The scene opens within the Green Windsor Imperial Palace, where Empress Viola receives Edeline. The Empress remarks with mild amusement that Edeline truly is alive and that she never expected her to return in such a surprising manner. Edeline, slightly emotional, apologizes for startling her and responds respectfully. Internally, she feels a strange sense of déjà vu. Edeline's mother also comments that Edeline has only just returned, yet she continues to cause concern. She mentions that Edeline even threw herself in front of an assassin to protect the saintess recently. Edeline thinks privately that although she knew the Empress and Genevieve were old acquaintances, she never expected such a warm, personal reception. She also reflects that gatherings like these always feel suffocating. The Empress advises her not to step forward recklessly in dangerous situations in the future and instead to stay behind others for safety, even suggesting she should use others as shields if necessary, though she says it with a gentle smile. Edeline is startled inwardly by how calmly such frightening advice is delivered. The Empress continues, saying Edeline is like a daughter to her. Edeline responds politely, expressing gratitude for her affection. Her mother urges her to take the Empress's words seriously. The Empress then sighs and remarks that, honestly, it feels like a waste that Edeline has not married her son. Edeline nearly chokes on her tea at the sudden statement. Her mother panics and reminds the Empress that she promised not to bring that up. The Empress laughs it off, while Edeline also smiles politely, though internally she rejects the idea entirely, thinking she would never marry a man rumored to be a womanizer with unpredictable intentions. The Empress continues, mentioning that the Crown Prince is currently in marriage talks with a foreign princess, but adds that the situation collapsed after the princess fell in love with a rebel leader and handed over her kingdom. She sighs, saying she will stop speaking about lost daughters-in-law, as it only pains her. Edeline quietly reflects that the Empress is someone who surpasses even her in emotional intensity, and that she is nothing in comparison. The Empress then shifts tone and reveals the reason she called Edeline. She asks her to help the Crown Prince Edwin choose a wife during the Foundation Festival. She praises Edeline's ability to deceive the entire world and trusts her judgment in people, instructing her to remain by Edwin's side and help him decide. Edeline immediately agrees, outwardly stating it is an honor and she will do her best, though internally she decides it is safer not to get involved in imperial affairs too deeply. Still, she cannot afford to refuse the Empress. The Empress thanks her warmly, once again lamenting that Edeline is such a waste of potential. After the audience, Edeline stands near a wall feeling completely drained, thinking she feels as though she has aged 10 years in a single conversation. She notes that no one seems to truly believe in the saintess miracle anymore. Shane arrives and asks whether the audience went well. Edeline replies tiredly that it felt exhausting. Shane asks if she is returning home, but she replies that she intends to see Genevieve before leaving. At that moment, Crown Prince Edwin interrupts, stating that she will not be able to meet the saintess because Genevieve is refusing to see anyone except her husband. Edeline is shocked and asks if something happened to Genevieve. Edwin confirms that Genevieve is not seeing anyone. Edeline insists she wants to understand why. Edwin explains that Genevieve is emotionally unstable and exhausted. Edeline wonders inwardly if Genevieve is angry at her for recklessly jumping into danger again. She forces a smile and decides she will wait until Genevieve calms down. Edwin observes that she is surprisingly persistent. Shane quietly agrees that persistent women are troublesome. Edeline confidently insists that Genevieve will eventually open the door. Later, Edeline stands in front of Genevieve's room, calling out loudly and asking her to open the door and talk face to face. Shane and Edwin remain nearby. Shane announces that he will leave in 10 minutes, while Edwin remarks that he had already warned them she would not meet anyone. He also sarcastically adds that even he, the crown prince, was refused, so Edeline should not expect special treatment. Edeline responds calmly, noting that Edwin seems unusually close to Genevieve. Edwin casually confirms that they interact often. Edeline decides to try one last time, calling out again and threatening lightly that she will return every day if necessary. When that fails, she dramatically declares she will not eat and will starve herself. Edwin laughs, saying such childish tactics will not work. At that moment, the door suddenly opens. Genevieve steps out and complains that Edeline is playing unfair. Edeline immediately asks to come inside, briefly glancing at Edwin behind her. Genevieve allows her in. Inside the room, Genevieve apologizes, explaining that she was not avoiding Edeline out of anger, but because she was overwhelmed and unwell. She says exhaustion finally caught up with her. Edeline quickly reassures her and asks if Genevieve is not upset with her. Genevieve remains silent, and Edeline guesses whether it is because she was nearly killed while trying to protect her. Edeline immediately says she did not intend to die. Genevieve, however, insists that she had warned her before about not caring for herself. She expresses fear, explaining that if Shane had arrived even slightly later, Edeline could have died. She becomes emotional, overwhelmed by guilt. Edeline responds that she noticed the attack first and acted instinctively, especially since Genevieve was in danger. Genevieve begins crying, saying she has dealt with similar attacks before and should have noticed the presence of black magic. She blames herself for not being able to stop it, calling herself a half-baked saintess. Edeline immediately tells her not to speak of herself that way, urging her not to underestimate herself and reassuring her that she will stay by her side if she needs to cry. Genevieve admits she was also angry at Edeline, but more than that, she could not forgive herself. She explains that the attacker was definitely under black magic, which she should have been able to dispel. She recalls that the previous saintess could heal and purify without even touching, but she feels inadequate in comparison. Edeline gently tells her that she can do it. Genevieve asks how she can be so sure. Edeline hesitates, unable to reveal the truth of the original story, and instead says it is intuition. She adds that if Genevieve cannot believe in herself, then she should believe in her. Genevieve, moved, asks how Edeline can have such unwavering faith when she herself cannot even believe in her own abilities. Edeline simply holds her and responds that it is because she knows how amazing Genevieve truly is. Genevieve, tearful, thinks about how consistent Edeline has been since the very beginning, how she has always stood by her without hesitation. Genevieve's childhood unfolds as a flashback, where a harsh voice calls her a stupid girl and scolds her for finding it so difficult to even chop wood and start a fire. The person furiously asks if she wants to see them freeze to death in the middle of winter. Genevieve, small and frightened, explains that she was only told to fetch water, but her words only worsen the situation. The response is violent, as her hair is pulled and she is accused of talking back, while she cries and begs them not to hit her, calling out for help and her mother. The world around her feels cruel and suffocating. The man mocks her, questioning if she dares bite him. Her stepfather remains drunk and violent, while her mother turns a blind eye to her desperate pleas, too afraid to intervene. The abuse continues as her childhood becomes a living hell. One day, she runs from the house, But her father chases after her, shouting that she must stay right there and that he will not let her off easily if he catches her. Eventually, he does catch her and continues hitting her, leaving Genevieve Clement trapped in endless fear and pain. Even later in life, when she meets a man named Shane Blancard, she does not feel saved. He tells her to come with him. Genevieve recalls that she cannot find even a trace of emotion in his cold eyes, and all she feels is terror. Yet when he offers her a way out, the simple fact that she will no longer be beaten by her stepfather becomes enough reason for her to follow him without asking why. After following Duke Blancard to the Imperial Palace, she is introduced as a saintess. People welcome her, but inside she feels unsettled and questions what she is doing. She thinks that she understands better than anyone that she is not a real saintess. Even now, she knows she must tell the truth, that she is nothing important, just an insignificant girl, but the words refuse to come out. She does not want to return to that hell where she lived in constant fear, trembling every day at shouting and violence. She wonders if someone might criticize her for deciding the world based only on her desire to survive. She admits internally that she sold her conscience for the simple reason of wanting to live like a human being. Later, she sits in the garden of the Imperial Palace as noble ladies observe her and whisper. They question whether a girl like her could really be a saintess, saying she does not look special at all, and wondering if she is actually a fraud pretending to be a saintess to deceive the young Duke of Blancard. Genevieve cannot respond to even a single doubt, as guilt presses heavily on her heart. She believes that a world without a saintess would become contaminated and eventually perish, and that a saintess is indispensable, someone only capable of saving everyone. She thinks someone like her could never be such a great person and worries that the real saintess may never be found because of her. She fears she may be blocking salvation out of selfishness. Yet even then, she cannot bring herself to confess, thinking that if she does, she will have to return to that place of suffering. She eventually admits to herself that she is not a saintess. One day, she meets Edeline Bertrand, daughter of Marquis Bertrand. Edeline greets her warmly, offering respect to the so-called noble saintess. From that day onward, everything begins to change. Edeline invites her to the Bertrand estate almost every day, and they share warm meals in a comfortable atmosphere. Genevieve no longer trembles in fear. She is shown a world she never imagined, a peace she has never experienced in her life. The Imperial Palace becomes the first place she ever feels safe. Edeline becomes the person who teaches her what warmth truly means, and this makes Genevieve's heart feel heavy with guilt at receiving such kindness. One day, she asks Edeline why she is so kind to her. Edeline smiles and tells her it is because she is simply so cute. Genevieve responds that she does not know how she will ever repay such kindness, and internally she struggles, unable to accept such unconditional care. She thinks she cannot continue taking advantage of someone who shows her kindness even when she does not deserve it. Yet Edeline gently tells her that she has never owed her anything, and that as long as she is happy, that is more than enough. She says she is satisfied just seeing Genevieve happy. Genevieve, overwhelmed, insists that she has been shameless and has taken everything without giving anything in return. But Edeline tells her it is okay to be as happy as she wants to be, because she is only happy if Genevieve is happy. Hearing this, Genevieve looks at her, feeling her heart tighten, unsure what she should do. She does not want to disappoint her. She wraps her selfish desire for safety in fragile excuses, deciding that if she simply stays quiet and careful, everything will be fine and no one will find out. She convinces herself she does not want to lose Edeline. However, her silence leads to consequences. Because of her, Lady Edeline becomes the subject of a scandal. People begin gossiping, questioning whether Edeline is the woman who bewitched the young Duke of Blancard, claiming she is merely the Duke's lover and not a saintess at all. They mock Edeline's affection and pity her fiancé, spreading cruel rumors. Genevieve realizes with horror that her presence has caused harm to the one person who treated her kindly. She feels disgusted with herself, thinking that if she leaves, she will have to return to her previous life, something she would rather die than face. She calls herself selfish, filthy, and unworthy. In her lowest state of self-loathing, she is overheard by others. One day, maids are gossiping about her when Edeline arrives and demands to know what they are saying. When one maid repeats the insult, Edeline asks who they claimed was filthy. Genevieve, terrified, explains that it was Lady Edeline they were talking about. She panics, trying to correct the misunderstanding, but Edeline firmly states that she and Genevieve are doing just fine on their own and that it is not the kind of relationship others assume. When the maids warn that Edeline might be deceived by a fake saintess, Edeline firmly defends Genevieve, declaring under the name of Bertrand that Genevieve is undoubtedly a saintess. That single declaration becomes the turning point. Suddenly, light begins to emanate from Genevieve, and everyone is shocked, asking if it is holy power. In that moment, her powers begin to awaken, even if only partially. Genevieve realizes that Edeline is the one who always gives her a reason to keep going, her eternal savior. Even now, she feels that if Edeline tells her she can do it, she might even be able to become the person she is meant to be. She begins to believe she can be happy. Later, at an imperial palace banquet, she stands among nobles as they discuss Edeline and suspicious social gatherings after her marriage. Someone comments that Edeline's recent outings seem suspicious and wonders if she is plotting something. Another agrees, hoping her plans fail and expressing irritation at the idea of Shane losing his temper again. Suddenly, chaos erupts in the banquet hall. People scream as something happens and panic spreads everywhere. Genevieve looks around in confusion as the Windsor structure suddenly shatters. She immediately asks Edeline if she is all right. Edeline responds in shock, asking Genevieve what the thing is, identifying it as a monster summoning circle and confirming that it is black magic. The saintess calls out for Edeline in the middle of the chaos as the imperial palace collapses into panic. Everyone is running in every direction, trying desperately to save themselves while monsters fly through the palace halls, shrieking violently as they descend upon the nobles and guards. Genevieve urgently calls out, asking if Edeline is hurt. Edeline, shocked and struggling to comprehend the scene, asks Genevieve what on earth is happening, questioning whether that is a monster summoning circle and realizing that it is black magic. A flying monster appears, screeching as it becomes increasingly dangerous, closing in on them. Suddenly, Shane arrives flying into action and cuts down the monster with his sword in a single strike. He immediately rushes to Edeline, asking if she is injured anywhere. Edeline replies that she is fine. Genevieve quickly steps forward, insisting that she protected Edeline with holy power and tells everyone not to worry. Shane immediately takes command, telling them to evacuate Edeline first and ensure her safety, while he stays behind to fight the monsters. He emphasizes that Edeline's safety is the priority and that she must be taken to safety immediately before anything else. Edeline insists that she can dodge attacks on her own, but Genevieve firmly disagrees, telling her that Shane is right and that she will protect her, urging her to follow her quickly. As another monster attacks, Shane fights it off while ordering them to go. Both girls begin running, and Edeline glances back at him with worry, silently hoping he'll not get hurt at all. Meanwhile, Edwin stands amid the chaos, commanding the Imperial Guards to protect all VIPs and to not let a single monster enter deeper into the palace. He expresses shock at how easily the Imperial Palace has been overrun by black magic. Shane also warns that even His Highness should consider fleeing as he continues fighting. In the midst of battle, Shane notices Edeline and Genevieve running and thinks that they seem safe for now, which brings him momentary relief. The two girls continue running toward a safer chamber while monsters relentlessly pursue them. Genevieve, seeing the danger escalate, uses her holy power to control and repel one of the monsters, striking it down successfully. Edeline watches in amazement and praises her, saying she annihilated a monster in a single blow. However, Genevieve immediately denies it, thinking that her abilities are still far too lacking. She reflects that if she possessed the power of previous saintesses, she would have destroyed the entire magic circle and protected everyone completely, not merely defended a single person. As they try to move forward, they hear more monstrous voices echoing through the palace. Someone shouts that monsters are pouring out endlessly and that at this rate, the entire imperial palace will be in danger. Genevieve urgently tells Edeline to hurry to the chambers and assures her that she will protect her at least. Edeline, observing the worsening situation, realizes that no matter how strong the Imperial Guards and Shane are, the number of monsters is overwhelming. She thinks that they will collapse from exhaustion before the magic circle disappears. She also feels that she cannot allow Genevieve to be held back because of her in a situation like this. Genevieve, overwhelmed, mutters that it makes no sense for there to be a warlock capable of creating such a powerful black magic formation. Edeline tells her calmly that she will be fine and urges her to go help Shane instead, saying he will be in trouble at this rate. Genevieve hesitates, calling out to Edeline, but then stops herself. She thinks that she cannot continue being weak like this and that if they stay like this, everyone will truly be in danger. Gathering her resolve, she agrees. She rushes back into the battlefield to assist Shane, using her holy power to strike down monsters. However, in the midst of the overwhelming battle, she suddenly falters, her condition weakening. Edeline immediately calls out to her, asking if she is okay and telling her to breathe. Genevieve, struggling to steady herself, thinks that protecting Lady Edeline is the best she can do with her abilities, even if it costs her everything. A few days pass since the monster summoning incident, and Edeline stands quietly in the garden, reflecting on the aftermath. She thinks it is surprising that he did not come to the mansion to meet her and instead allowed her to go out freely on her own. She wonders if it is because all attention has shifted toward Genevieve. Shane is currently pursuing the mastermind behind the incident alongside the Imperial investigation team, and since Lucian has also joined the investigation, they should be able to uncover important clues soon. However, Edeline understands that this does not mean she can remain idle. She feels certain that there is something only she can do. She begins tracing the original story in her mind. The attack on the saintess at the church never existed in the original narrative, but the monster summoning incident from a few days ago does. In the original story, Genevieve defeats the monsters that appear in the Imperial Palace alone, clearing all suspicion against herself. Edeline reflects that this event was originally supposed to happen 5 years earlier, but for some reason it is only occurring now. In the original timeline, after this incident, people change their attitude toward Genevieve and treat her with kindness. However, Genevieve, unable to trust human fickleness, leaves everyone behind and goes out to the plaza. From that moment onward, the story rapidly diverges, because it is there that she first meets the warlock, who becomes deeply interested in her. That encounter becomes the catalyst for his obsession. Edeline thinks again in frustration that she is interfering with the original flow of the story despite trying so hard to avoid it. She realizes that no one can predict what will come next in life. At that moment, Liard reports that he will bring an interim update from Lucian soon, so there is still some time before the meeting. While she waits, a servant arrives announcing that her ordered items have been delivered. The scene shifts as Edeline sits down and quietly drinks tea, deciding to eat while she has the chance. She thinks that she should still try to follow Genevieve's original path. In the original story, Genevieve encounters the sorcerer near a cafe while leaving for investigation-related purposes. Edeline reasons that if this is truly part of the investigation, then following those same steps might lead her to the same encounter. If she follows Genevieve's path carefully, she might also meet the warlock. As she thinks this, she hears a child calling for her mother nearby, followed by a mother gently warning her child to be careful not to fall. Edeline watches the small, ordinary moment and reflects on the incident, thinking about how strange it is that all these people are actually characters inside a novel. She wonders what roles each of them is supposed to play. Then she questions something deeper, whether people who are not even mentioned in the original story can truly be considered to have no role at all. A strange unease settles in her chest as she realizes that this world feels far too vivid and real to be just a written story. It feels like a place she must continue living in. At that moment, Liard arrives and calls her Master. She turns to him and immediately asks if Lucian has discovered anything. Liard first informs her that he has news regarding the saintess. Edeline, slightly surprised, asks if it is about Genevieve. Liard confirms that Genevieve has gone out for tea with Shane. Edeline remarks that this is not particularly important information and assumes Genevieve must be exhausted and resting. Laird then adds that there is another report concerning the warlock. Edeline immediately reacts, asking what it is. Laird asks if she knows of a place called the Kingdom of Brubane. Edeline responds that she has never heard of it before. Laird explains that it is a small kingdom on the western frontier of the Greenwater Empire. Despite its small size and mountainous terrain, it once survived through forestry and mining, allowing its people to live modest but stable lives. However, 14 years ago, a massive magical explosion occurred in Brubane. Edeline is surprised and asks why she had never heard of something so significant. Laird explains that she was still young at the time, and since the explosion did not directly affect the Empire, it was not widely reported in newspapers. Still, Brubane suffered severe devastation. The land became barren, forests disappeared, and monsters began appearing. As a result, the kingdom fell into ruin and is now considered the weakest of the weak. Edeline realizes this and asks if the explosion was caused by the warlock. Laird confirms that it was likely the work of a warlock. However, the rumors from Brubane are different from what she expects. After the disaster, a warlock appeared who could control monsters and is said to be protecting the devastated kingdom. Instead of destruction, he is reportedly helping the people and making monsters obedient to him, almost like a god to them. Laird explains that this is all the information Lucien has gathered so far and that he'll continue investigating. Edeline thanks him for his work, thinking deeply about what she has just heard. None of this information exists in the original story. It makes no sense that someone who could save a dying country would also attack the Imperial Palace. Yet what troubles her most is the idea that someone can control monsters. She feels increasingly uncertain, wondering what is truly going on. The more she tries to gather information, the more unknown pieces appear, and she realizes she understands less and less. As she stands there lost in thought, Shane notices her and approaches. He gently holds her face and tells her that he missed her. Edeline, surprised, asks how he knew she was here. Shane replies that he is not so easily fooled and that he would never send her to the Bertrand mansion without safeguards, knowing she might leave at any moment. Edeline realizes then that he must have been monitoring her all along. She remembers how easily everyone allowed her to go out, including her brother Jeff, who casually wished her a good trip. Laird also said he was leaving her side because he thought it would be more comfortable for her. Shane, noticing her expression, comments that he likes how quickly she understands things. He leans closer and asks if she is angry, pointing out the frown on her face. Edeline replies that she cannot help being angry when she realizes she is being monitored wherever she goes. Shane admits she is right and says it was a pointless question. He tells her to forget it, then gently kisses her forehead. Edeline, startled, calls out his name. She tells him that she has given up on being loved by him. Internally, she thinks that Shane's words imply that whether she loves him or not, he intends to keep loving her anyway, as if she will naturally reject him. She wants to correct that assumption, but she realizes it is not the right time yet because she has not yet captured the true villain of the original story. She resolves that if she survives everything and reaches the end after catching the culprit, she will finally give him an answer, that she also likes him and wants to be happy with him, but he'll have to wait a little longer. She then asks Shane about the Imperial investigation team and whether things are going well. Shane replies that he actually came to tell her something important. They have finally captured the culprit. Edeline freezes for a moment, then laughs in disbelief, asking if he is serious and demanding to know who it is. Shane's expression darkens as he replies that the bastard finally crawled out on his own after attacking the saintess again. The scene opens inside the Imperial Palace as Shane and Edeline run through the corridors in urgency. Shane tells her that she does not need to worry because Genevieve was not seriously hurt. Edeline immediately reacts in shock, repeating that she was not seriously hurt and asking what that even means. She questions how Genevieve could volunteer herself as bait even if it was part of a plan to lure out the culprit, insisting that Genevieve should never have done something so dangerous. Shane asks her if she is really that worried about Genevieve, and Edeline replies firmly that of course she is, since Genevieve ran straight into danger without understanding how important she is. Hearing this, Shane internally reflects that coming from him, it probably sounds hypocritical. Edeline then quickly apologizes for snapping at him, and Shane calmly replies that he understands because he felt the same way she did. Soon, they arrive near Genevieve. Edeline calls out to her while noticing two maids standing nearby. Shane excuses himself briefly, observing Edeline's worried expression as she steps forward. Edeline asks Genevieve if she is truly all right. Genevieve responds casually, greeting her with Lady Edeline, and then stands up, noting that she has already arrived. Edeline and Shane are both surprised by how energetic she appears. Shane remarks that he told Edeline Genevieve would be fine. Genevieve smiles and asks if Edeline is angry with her. Her expression clearly suggests she already knows the answer. Edeline quickly says she is not angry and steps closer, though Shane silently thinks that she is lying and tells her to relax her face because she looks worried. Shane then reflects internally, realizing that Genevieve had gone on a retreat outside the capital with her husband specifically to act as bait. The narrative shifts into a flashback from a few hours earlier at a retreat outside the capital. Genevieve sits beside Harrison, who worries about her safety and asks if she is truly sure about this plan. He says he will give his life to protect her, but is still anxious. Genevieve gently smiles and reassures him, telling him not to worry and reminding him that the Royal Guard and Duke Blancard are both protecting the area, so they will be fine. She adds confidently that she is the saint who saved the palace from disaster and tells him to trust her. As they speak, Harrison suddenly notices something strange in the surroundings, sensing a powerful magical presence. Genevieve immediately realizes the situation and internally concludes that the mage has taken the bait. She declares that the warlock is nearby. Shane quickly gives orders to seal the area and ensure that nothing escapes, while guards respond immediately. Harrison tells Genevieve to come closer because it is dangerous, but she refuses, stating that this is nothing compared to what she has already faced. She raises her hand, releasing a surge of holy power that disperses the magical influence around them. A violent backlash follows, creating a storm-like disturbance. Genevieve briefly reacts in pain, realizing it is the rebound of the dispelling spell. Guards successfully capture the target while Duke Blancard draws his sword and presses it against the captured man's neck. Despite the chaos, Genevieve smiles and calmly states that although the magical shock was strong enough to shake the entire area, she was not harmed thanks to divine protection. She then adds slightly disappointedly that she regrets not properly introducing her husband again, though the situation forced them to act quickly. Internally, she reflects that a saint should not be acting as bait, yet she resolves that she will introduce him properly next time. Edeline watches all of this and feels deeply emotional, thinking that Genevieve shows no trace of remorse. Genevieve reassures her again, saying she is completely fine and telling her not to worry. Edeline, relieved but still shaken, expresses gratitude that she is safe. Edeline then turns to Shane and asks who the culprit is. Shane explains that it is a priest from the church who learned dark magic, adding that it would be funny if it were not so disgusting. Edeline questions why a priest would try to kill the saint, and Shane explains that it is a political struggle between the church and the crown. The saint is technically under imperial authority, but the pontiff deeply favors her. If Genevieve were to become the next pontiff, the church could fall under imperial control, which certain factions fear. Genevieve adds that it is a message-driven situation and suggests that His Holiness likely sensed the tension and impatience grew over time. Edeline then asks whether the attack at the palace banquet was also connected. Shane explains that while they need further confirmation, they believe it was intended as a warning to both the saint and the imperial family. If nobles are harmed and the palace fails to respond properly, public support may shift toward the church instead. Edeline coldly calls it filthy, while Genevieve calmly states that there is no need to worry anymore because the culprit has been caught and the situation is over. Internally, Genevieve reflects that in the original story, the mage behind the chaos was captured and everything ended in a happy conclusion. Although the path taken this time was different, the outcome is the same. She wonders if perhaps the story has already reached its end, and if all of them have finally broken free from their scripted fate. At that thought, Edeline suddenly begins crying heavily. Shane calls out to her in concern, and Genevieve immediately steps closer, calling her name gently. Edeline is overwhelmed with emotion, realizing how much she has sacrificed and endured, believing she had to discard everything just to survive. She thinks about how she believed survival was her only goal, and how she never expected things to resolve so simply. She feels regret for hurting people who were precious to her. Shane calls her again, asking what is wrong, while Genevieve also looks at her in concern. Edeline silently apologizes to Shane and Genevieve in her thoughts, overwhelmed with guilt. Unable to hold herself back any longer, she clings to Shane and cries intensely. At that moment, His Highness arrives and comments lightly that he seems to have interrupted a rather emotional moment in the Crown Prince's office. Genevieve quickly apologizes and assures him not to worry. She adds that although she is not fully certain what happened, she feels relieved now that the mage has been caught, to the point that she cried herself to sleep. Shane asks whether the interrogation is complete. His Highness replies that it is done for now, but it is likely to continue because the suspect's testimony is full of inconsistencies. The man admitted to attacking the saint but claims he was acting under someone else's orders, though his memory of that person is strangely vague. He also firmly denies involvement in the monster summoning incident. Genevieve agrees that the second claim is plausible, noting that the magical signature from the lake incident was much weaker than the previous attack. His Highness adds that if the suspect suffered such a backlash, he would have been on the brink of death. He concludes that they must not let their guard down, because the true mastermind may still be at large, all while looking directly at Edeline as he speaks. That night, at the Blancard estate, Edeline lies asleep in her bed, her exhaustion finally catching up with her. Shane stands quietly in the room, watching over her, while Liard sits nearby, tending to her condition. Liard calmly remarks that Edeline's eyes are quite swollen, and says he will prepare something in the morning to reduce the puffiness. Shane responds, noting that Liard is skilled at this, and asks if he has been helping Edeline fall asleep like this every night. Liard replies that there were times when he was the only one available to take care of her, adding that his lady is someone who requires a great deal of looking after. Shane then asks if Edeline truly asked him for help. Liard glances at him and internally considers that it is natural for him to feel jealous, especially since she once abandoned him. In an instant, Shane steps forward, grabbing Liard by the collar and warning him not to push his luck. Liard, unfazed, comments that Shane's expression is quite dangerous and says that Lady Edeline should really see him like this. Shane coldly replies that if Liard were not someone Edeline cares about, he would already be dead. Liard then asks him if he knows the difference between them. He says that no matter what Edeline thinks or does, all he has to do is follow her. But Shane, on the other hand, wants more than that. He wants to possess her, to uncover her deepest secrets, even though she has no intention of giving them to anyone. Liard tells him to calm down, adding that Edeline does not even tell him everything either. He then tells Shane to get out. Liard begins to leave, saying he was already on his way and telling Shane not to torment his lady, instead to take better care of her since she looks exhausted. As he walks through the hall, Liard thinks that there is not a single lie in what he said. No matter what Edeline does, all he needs is to follow her, as long as she keeps the one promise she made to him. A flashback appears. A younger Edeline tells him to come with her and promises that she will be the place where he belongs. She says she will never abandon him and extends her hand, swearing that promise. Liard returns to the present, thinking that she has never broken that promise even once. To him, she will always be his master, his parent, and his sibling, just as she has always been. As long as she keeps that promise, he does not need to know everything about her life. Still, he briefly wonders that someone who was once abandoned might feel differently. Back in the room, Shane sits near Edeline, watching her as she sleeps. His expression softens, but his thoughts are conflicted. He thinks about the different versions of her he has seen. The woman who looked at him with warmth, the one who spoke her mind without hesitation, the one who deceived him and left, and now this version of her crying like a child whose emotional restraint has finally shattered. He thinks that this fragile, broken version is still Edeline, even if it does not match the image he had in his mind. He gently moves his hand to her face, thinking that if this is truly her, then he can accept it. He silently affirms that what he loves is Edeline exactly as she is. A memory resurfaces. In the past, Edeline once told him that she was done seeing him and asked why he kept coming back. Shane replied that he wanted to understand why she was angry. She insisted that she was not angry and declared she would not marry him, telling him not to look for her anymore. He stood quietly and asked her if she hated him. Before she could finish speaking, he told her that he would not force her to stay with him if she hated him, but he asked her to say it clearly. He wanted her to tell him he was repulsive, just like everyone else did. He revealed that even his own mother had once thought of him as a monster, something unworthy of love or harm, and that perhaps she had not been entirely wrong. He said that if she could just say it, he would accept it. But Edeline suddenly interrupted him, asking who had ever said such things. She told him that he was not repulsive at all, that his blue eyes were beautiful, and warned him never to say something like that again. She clarified that those eyes were never the reason she wanted to break off the engagement. Shane responded softly that as long as she thought they were beautiful, that was all he needed. Back in the present, he thinks of her as foolish and naive in a gentle, bittersweet way. He remembers how she treated him carefully, as if he were something fragile, speaking kindly and never pushing him away, even when she did not fully understand him. That kindness gave him hope that she might always stay by his side. Yet she was also the first to leave without explanation. He swallowed his anger back then, telling himself he could not let her death be in vain, and tried to protect everything she left behind. But the truth, he realizes now, is that he was never truly close to her. She never fully let him in. If he had known that earlier kindness was only his own illusion, he would never have come this far. He concludes that it is too late to turn back now. Edeline has no choice but to accept what has already been set in motion. He leans down toward her and softly says that it is unfortunate that someone like him has become attached to her. Even if she never tells him anything, even if she says she hates him, nothing will change. He gently kisses her forehead. Outside, a black-feathered bird lands on a tree branch, its red eyes glowing as it watches silently. In a distant place, a voice speaks, cold and controlled, acknowledging that the saint's power has awakened in full force and that this was the result of failing to stop her. The voice reflects that next time they should act sooner and says that responsibility must be acknowledged. However, for now, they will not hold it against them. Instead, they instruct that the weight of guilt and urgency should be carried forward. They conclude that as long as there are those who interfere with the flow of the world, things will not proceed as they are meant to. A final warning follows. They are to stay ready from this point onward, because now the speaker is the one giving the orders. It is a beautiful morning when Edeline wakes up. She stands by the window, looking outside in quiet wonder, thinking that she has never seen a morning this beautiful in her entire life. The sunlight feels softer than before, the birds sound clearer, and even the air seems to carry a different color from anything she has known. She gently realizes that she truly is free from the original story. The thought brings her a sense of liberation she has longed for desperately. She feels that she can finally live however she wants. The pressure of survival, the belief that the world was against her, and the burden of fulfilling a predetermined role, all of it feels like it is fading away. She admits to herself that she hurt far too many people with her own hands in the process of surviving. But now, she feels she can say honestly that she loves them. Her thoughts drift to Shane as she softly reflects that she will love him as much as she once hurt him. No, even more than that. As she imagines him, Shane suddenly appears, carrying a tray of tea. He greets her casually, telling her that she is awake and suggesting they have breakfast. Seeing him, she immediately becomes bright and happy, stepping forward to hug him. Shane is slightly taken aback by her reaction, and she asks him if he is feeling all right and not too tired. She happily says she feels absolutely wonderful, and even mentions that her eyes are not swollen anymore. They both sit down at the table as Shane places breakfast in front of her, saying he is glad and asking if they should eat. He reminds her that she likes potato cream soup and says it is perfect for her. They begin eating together. As Shane takes a bite, Edeline becomes emotional, saying that it tastes so good and that she never knew food could be this delicious. Shane teases her lightly, saying she eats it all the time and asking why she is acting like she has never tasted it before, commenting that she is in a very good mood today. Edeline smiles and agrees, thinking that this is the happiest morning of her entire life. She reflects that the so-called villain has disappeared from the stage and the protagonists are each walking their own paths. It has been so long since she last had a nightmare that she cannot even remember when it ended. She convinces herself that everything is finally over. Shane then tells her that he will be late returning home tonight, asking her to go ahead and sleep without waiting. Edeline asks if he is going to the palace again. He replies that he was unable to have an audience with His Highness yesterday and still has matters to handle regarding the aftermath of the culprit's capture. Edeline thinks that it makes sense, remembering that she collapsed and they returned home early. She tells him that she will go see Genevieve later, thinking that Genevieve must still be shaken from everything that happened. She feels she needs to reassure her. Shane then asks, "And me?" Edeline is surprised and responds with a confused sound. Shane admits that he was also frightened. Hearing this, Edeline softens and thinks that this is her chance to approach him honestly with her true feelings. She stands up, gently kisses him on the forehead, and apologizes for scaring him. Shane is visibly surprised. Edeline thinks that tonight, when he returns, she will talk to him about everything, why she faked her death and ran away 5 years ago. She knows she will have to begin by explaining that this world is actually from a novel. She worries he may not believe such an absurd truth, but she decides she will no longer hide anything. She wants him to know her honest feelings. She embraces him and thinks that she will keep loving him and that she wants to confess everything from the bottom of her heart. Later, they arrive at the Imperial Palace. Edeline meets Genevieve, who immediately comments that her eyes are not swollen anymore, which is a relief. Edeline replies with a light smile, saying that no one uses holy power just because someone's eyes are a bit puffy. Genevieve gently insists that she must still be tired and offers to help her recover a little more, though she jokingly adds that perhaps someone here already does that, so it might not be necessary. Shane then announces that while Genevieve treats Edeline, he will go attend his audience with His Highness. He tells Edeline he will come back to pick her up and warns her not to cause any trouble in the meantime. Edeline quickly tells him to wait, then unexpectedly kisses him. She tells him that it is enough and sends him off. Shane is stunned by her behavior but eventually leaves. Genevieve watches this and comments that Lady Edeline seems to be in a very good mood today, noting that she has never seen her express affection so openly before. Edeline smiles and replies that since the culprit has been caught and everything is over, she feels as if a great weight has been lifted from her chest. Genevieve then casually asks if His Grace perhaps said something to her. Edeline pauses and responds that it is nothing, brushing it off. At that moment, Harrison arrives and asks if he may enter. Genevieve welcomes him warmly, calling him in. He apologizes for interrupting. Edeline observes him and internally realizes that this must be Genevieve's husband. Genevieve introduces Edeline, saying she is the Duchess Blancard. Edeline greets him politely, introducing herself as Edeline Blancard and saying she has been looking forward to meeting him. Harrison responds respectfully, saying it is an honor to meet her and that he has heard much about her, that she was always there for Genevieve when she was struggling, and he thanks her sincerely for being a source of strength. Genevieve lightly says that she is like a little sister to her, so it was only natural. She adds that she imagines it is now Harrison's turn to be hurt by her presence in Genevieve's life, half joking. Harrison modestly replies that he is far from enough, but doing his best. Genevieve comments gently that it seems like a heavy responsibility, but Edeline looks at him and thinks he seems simple yet reassuring, like a loyal and steady presence. She reflects that the heroine has ended up with someone who did not even appear in the original story. This world truly is no longer bound by a fixed script. In the end, She thinks a story only needs its heroine to be happy, and everything seems to have worked out. Then she remembers that Shane is still at the palace. The scene shifts to His Highness's office, where he complains that Shane is still in charge of the investigation. He remarks that it is inconvenient to keep summoning him back and forth between the Blancard estate and the palace. Edeline responds that although the culprit has been caught and there is no immediate urgency, the Highness insists that there are still matters to resolve and loose ends to tie up. Edeline thinks that something about the atmosphere feels off. She recalls Shane and Genevieve both saying things that linger in her mind, Shane mentioning the aftermath of the culprit's capture, and Genevieve asking if His Grace had said anything to her. A faint unease grows within her. She wonders, silently and uncertainly, why it still feels like the original story is not truly over yet. Edeline repeats the name Brubane, recognizing it from Lyard's earlier report. The Highness explains that it is a small kingdom where a mage supposedly saved the nation after a mana explosion. Edeline wonders aloud how a country devastated by such a disaster is still functioning. The Highness explains that Brubane turned its disaster into opportunity. After the mana explosion, monsters began appearing, and the kingdom began hunting them, selling their byproducts through illegal trade to other countries. Edeline points out that monster byproducts are valuable, but monsters themselves are dangerous, so a small country should not have the resources to hunt them in large numbers. She concludes that there must be a mage involved. The Highness confirms her suspicion. The national hero mage of Brubane is allegedly taming and killing monsters and sustaining the country through smuggling. If true, the entire kingdom's survival depends on that mage. Edeline realizes that this means Brubane's entire economy is essentially controlled by one individual. The Highness agrees and adds that monster byproducts can also be used as a medium for black magic, which is why this underground market thrives here. He further explains that mages from Brubane, along with nobles involved in black magic, gather in places like this auction house, meaning this is where the most suspicious individuals converge. Edeline realizes that the real culprit could be here. The Highness comments that even with masks, it is easy to tell she looks like she is attending a funeral. He tells her to relax. She snaps back that nothing in this world is easy, so of course she is tense. The Highness then offers to give her one more useful piece of information. He instructs her to extend only her index and middle fingers. Confused, she complies. He then tells her to raise her hand and wave it. She does so. Immediately, the announcer on stage calls out that the Black Cat Lady has placed a double bid. Edeline panics and demands what is happening. The Highness calmly explains that this gesture signals a bid at twice the previous price. Edeline is horrified, realizing she has just accidentally participated in the auction. The item is brought directly to her. The Highness casually explains that it came through one of his channels and suggests she should at least pay his commission as an information fee, teasing her that surely the Duchess of Blancard can afford it. Edeline calls him insane. She looks at the item and is surprised. The Highness notices and asks if she likes it, then casually takes it and places it on her ear. It is revealed to be a pair of earrings made from a matched set of monster materials. One side attracts and the other repels. When used properly, it is a magical tool capable of teleportation between paired points. He warns her not to lose it and jokes that she should be careful not to let her stalker husband find out. Edeline protests, saying it is unfair to call Shane a stalker, especially after the Highness has been hit by him. Before the conversation continues, guards suddenly burst into the auction house, shouting for Lucian to come out, accusing him of interfering with their goods and selling them off. Edeline is shocked. The Highness immediately asks where the leak came from. The guards order everyone to open the doors and threaten that if the auction items are not handed over, they will take heads instead. The crowd panics, calling for Lucian to stop them since this is his auction house. The Highness calmly remarks that they are quite spirited. Edeline, alarmed, asks if the earrings are involved. The Highness interrupts her and says that whether the guards take them or he sells them, everything here is already smuggled goods, so there is no point worrying about legality. Edeline feels like she is dealing with the philosopher of the criminal underworld. The Highness then asks how he should escape this situation. Edeline insists she will handle it somehow, but He calmly replies that she should leave it to him because he has the best insurance. Edeline looks at him uneasily, wondering why he is smiling so ominously. The scene continues inside the underground auction house as chaos escalates. A man in the crowd shouts angrily, demanding to know where Lucian Cole is. He claims this is Lucian's territory and orders him to come out immediately to deal with the situation, accusing the guards of trying to steal his winning bid. Edeline turns to Edwin and urgently asks how he intends to resolve everything, pointing out that he truly manages to make enemies everywhere he goes. Edwin replies very calmly that she does not need to worry and reminds her that he already told her he has the perfect insurance. Edeline looks around at the armed men preparing to tear the place apart and insists that if he really has a solution, he should use it immediately. At that moment, Edwin suddenly lifts her into his arms. She is shocked and demands what he is doing, telling him to put her down and questioning how she is still his insurance. Edwin replies casually that she should recognize her position properly. Then, stepping forward with complete confidence, Edwin addresses the entire crowd from the stage. He tells them to calm down and stop turning the situation into chaos, reminding them that this is a place for honored guests and that they should settle things like gentlemen, or be ready to face the consequences. He stands there with Edeline still in his arms, then removes her mask. He declares loudly that she is the beloved Duchess of Blancard, the saintess's restored favorite, and warns that if anything happens to Duchess Edeline Blancard in this chaos, the consequences will not be small. Edeline freezes in shock, realizing what he has done. Internally, she curses him as a madman, thinking she is finished. The crowd immediately reacts. People begin recognizing her, whispering in shock that it really is Edeline Blancard and that they have seen her at banquets before. Panic spreads as Edeline realizes the situation is now uncontrollable. She thinks that if word spreads that the Duchess of Blancard was present at a secret auction, the rumors will be disastrous. With so many witnesses, there is no way to contain it. She desperately asks Edwin how she is supposed to fix this and warns him that if Shane hears about it, it will be a disaster. Edwin tells her not to panic and to simply cooperate, insisting that he has his reasons and that nothing will harm her. Edeline, however, begins to feel genuine fear of what he might do next. Edwin continues speaking to her calmly, asking if she has ever imagined a future where someone as important as the Duchess of Blancard is harmed by back-alley thugs or church-related factions. He implies that such an incident would cause major political upheaval, involving powerful figures and escalating beyond control. He then coldly asks if money is more important than her life. Edeline snaps back that she regrets trusting him even for a moment. Edwin replies that if not him, then who would ensure her safety here? He reassures her again that she will be fine. At that moment, a man in the crowd suddenly reacts, recognizing Edeline Blancard and calling out in shock. He claims he has seen her before at a banquet. Edeline stares at him and realizes she knows him. He is the same man who once picked a fight with her at a banquet and was beaten down by Shane. She mutters that he is the one who crossed Shane. Edwin casually remarks that the rabid dog must have nearly been beaten to death. Edeline replies that it is close enough. The man then shouts that Edeline is his auction item and promises to pay handsomely to anyone who brings her to him. Edwin sighs, commenting that she really has been making enemies everywhere she goes. Edeline snaps that she does not want to hear that from him. Edwin announces that bidding will begin at 1 million. He grabs Edeline's hand as she struggles and shouts in disbelief. She cries out for someone to save her. Edwin calmly says, "This way, if you please, Duchess of Blancard," and begins moving her through the chaos. Edeline demands what he is doing, reminding him that this is supposedly his auction house and telling him to stop everything. Edwin replies that if she does not want to get hurt, she should follow quietly and watch her head and neck. Without warning, he counts 1, 2, and jumps out of the window with her. Edeline screams at him, calling him a mad bastard. They land outside, and Edeline gasps in shock, realizing she almost died. Edwin casually remarks that people do not die that easily and adds that he built proper emergency exits for situations like this. Edeline angrily asks how smashing a window and jumping out of a building can possibly be considered an emergency exit. Behind them, guards shout and give chase. Edwin comments that they are quite eager for a few coins slipped into the wrong hands. Edeline reminds him that half of them are actually after him. Edwin replies that this is exactly why he is protecting her. He tells her that if she does not want to see something ugly, she should follow his instructions and keep up. Edeline asks where he is taking her. While running, he tells her he will draw them off for a while and has a plan. He hands her one half of the magical earring set and explains that if she activates it in a crisis, it will teleport her to the matching piece, allowing escape from danger. Edeline realizes that even bringing her here was part of his so-called insurance. Edwin replies that it could be called half insurance, half request. He tells her to find a place to hide in the abandoned buildings nearby while he draws attention away. Edeline warns him not to die, saying she still has plenty of information to extract from him. As she runs off, she mutters that he is overflowing with affection in the worst possible way. She continues moving, thinking that she has never run like this before in her life. Her throat burns, and her breath feels heavy. She recalls the man from earlier, the drunkard, remembering how she publicly shamed him and how Shane nearly killed him in the past. She concludes that his hatred makes sense. She stops briefly, catching her breath, and reflects on Brobane again. She thinks about how after the mana explosion, monsters began appearing and a mage started saving the kingdom using monster byproducts, turning salvation into exploitation. She realizes that Brobane is essentially a nation whose survival is completely dependent on one mage. She considers the possibility that if that mage is truly the villain, then the mana explosion itself may have been a staged disaster designed to take control of the country. She then thinks about Genevieve, realizing that her purification power may be interfering with that system, which is why she is being targeted. But something still feels wrong. If that mage is truly planning something, why focus on Brobane instead of a larger target like the Greenwater Empire? Lost in thought, she suddenly hears a voice. When she looks up, she sees the same man again, the one from before. He calls out to her and says, "Shane Blancard." He looks at Edeline and immediately recognizes her. He says he has finally found her, Shane Blancard. Seeing him, Edeline realizes in panic that she has been caught. The man, clearly intoxicated and unstable, questions what business a noble duchess like her has in such a filthy place. Edeline forces herself to stay calm. She judges him to be a drunken, volatile man who could explode at any moment and decides that she must placate him just long enough to escape. If necessary, she considers using the magical earring Lucian gave her, though she is still uneasy about Lucian's current situation. She speaks carefully, telling him that there is nothing to gain from harming her and that she cannot afford to damage the dignity of a duchess. She also suggests that, as a nobleman, he should agree to simply ignore each other's presence and walk away. But the man only laughs. He mocks her, asking where all that confidence from the banquet night has gone, and says that without Shane Blancard, she immediately turns cowardly. He claims that if it benefits both sides, there is no reason to care about reputation, and implies that a noble woman alone is nothing. Edeline tries again to step forward and reason with him, but he suddenly grabs her by the hair and throws her to the ground. He insults her, saying he will not be provoked by something so insignificant. Edeline realizes with dread that he is completely out of control. The man lifts a bottle and prepares to strike her, telling her to pray to her precious husband before she dies. Edeline, shaken, reaches for the magical earring, thinking this is the only option left. She activates it, hoping to escape to Lucian. The earring begins to glow, but before the teleportation can complete, a voice cuts through the moment. Shane appears. He arrives instantly, sword in hand. Edeline breathes out in shock, calling his name. The man also reacts, asking why Shane Blancard is here. Shane looks at the scene in front of him and coldly demands what is going on. Without hesitation, he strikes the man down. The attacker, despite being injured, laughs even as he falls, saying he used the situation deliberately because he thought he was about to die anyway. In his hand, he holds the magical earring. Shane immediately questions what kind of magic item it is, but quickly shifts focus back to the situation. Seeing Edeline harmed, He concludes that the man must have laid hands on his wife knowing exactly what it would cost. Edeline, still dazed, mutters that she's been beaten again by that mad dog. She demands Lucian explain what is happening and why he is involved. At that moment, Harrison appears. He asks urgently if the Duchess of Blancard is unharmed. Edeline answers that she is fine, but immediately questions why Shane and the Royal Guard are here. Harrison explains that they have been conducting an undercover investigation connected to the current case. Edeline processes this and realizes that this place was already under surveillance because of black magic activity. Then a new thought strikes her. Lucian must have known Shane would come here too. That means everything may have been deliberately orchestrated. She turns sharply and calls out Lucian's name. But Lucian's voice is already fading. He tosses the earrings back toward her, apologizing for the inconvenience and saying that they are even now, since he nearly got beaten to death by her husband again. He adds casually that now that the prince has arrived, she can handle the rest. Then he disappears. Edeline stares at the empty space where he stood, realizing he has escaped. She bitterly thinks she should never have gotten involved with Lucian Cole. Shane turns to her. He asks if they're going home. He grabs her wrist and instructs her to mount the horse. Edeline tries to explain immediately, but he cuts her off, saying it is his own fault for not expecting her continued involvement with Lucian Cole. He adds coldly that he should have crushed Lucian properly when he had the chance. He orders Harrison to capture and interrogate everyone remaining at the site. Then he lifts Edeline onto the horse. The horse begins to move. Edeline calls out to him, asking him to listen, but Shane only replies that they will speak at home. As they ride, Edeline realizes he is truly angry. She remembers a time when she once wished for exactly this, that Shane would be angry enough to sever ties with her so she could survive without attachments. Back then, she pushed him away on purpose, hoping he would eventually abandon her. But now things are different. Her feelings have changed. She no longer wants him to be angry. She wants him to trust her. And now, with the real culprit still out there, she can no longer tell him the truth. She wonders what she is supposed to do. Later, at home, Shane holds her and demands she speak the truth. He says that at this moment, he could endure any lie she tells. Edeline tells him the truth as best as she can. Lucian took her without warning. She did not know where she was going, and she never intended anything suspicious. She insists it is all true. Shane asks if she has continued contact with Lucian Cole. She tries to explain further, but he interrupts. He tells her it is fine. He says he is keeping her by his side despite knowing everything and that he never expected her to love him in return. Edeline quickly denies it, but he continues. He says he knew she had been acting differently, that her sudden affection felt like a performance meant to deceive him. He admits he almost lowered his guard because of it. Then he kisses her forehead and calls it a flawless performance. Edeline is stunned. She realizes she was careless. The wounds Shane carries and the distrust built over years cannot be undone so easily. This is the price of a life spent lying, running, and pushing him away. She insists she will never run from him again, no matter what happens. She swears she will return to him, but Shane asks if she is satisfied. When she questions him, he tells her that if her goal was to make him smile while knowing it was all a lie, then she has succeeded. Edeline denies it, saying she does not want to hurt him anymore. Shane then coldly asks how it feels to watch a dog wag its tail at a single word from her.